Good evening, fine people of the internet. It is Wednesday night. It's time for some midweek, and my panel tonight we have Where Gingerbeard. We have Count Grumpy Old Slan, and we have the ghoulish Saxius.
All nobility around here, and then me, the ghoul.
The ghoul, yes.
Yes,
I wouldn't say
my lord.
where.
Yay.
I wouldn't say where Gingerbeard is nobility. I mean, Slan has
Did you
that
call-
regal sort of accent, doesn't he? So
I thought you called Where Gingerbeard a count.
I'm king of my hovel.
king of your hovel. Okay. And in chat, I can see. Oh, there's Halakar. There's Paris. There's From the Hill to Lee Baker. I can see you lurking there, Saxius. And we have a Wayne creeping in. Wayne from Discord.
Dun, dun, dun.
Hello. Wayne.
Good day, folks.
Can't.
If the
You
sound's a
appear to be
bit funny,
quite
I'm sitting on the
laggy.
front lawn. Yeah, I'm on the lawn.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Damn dog wanted to go for a walk.
You are very, very jerky there, Wayne. Very jerky.
Oh, hang on. I'll get closer.
So if you can find yourself somewhere where you're not jerking around so much, that would be great. I mean, I'm probably breaking up a bit because of my internet connection. It's always bad. Oh, Wayne's disappeared. My internet connection is always bad here. Hello, Nosorian. Hello, Andy. Right. Shall we talk about games now, or shall we talk about games at the end of the stream? I'll let Saxius decide, because Saxius is the boss. Hello, Off-Bait.
We will talk about games now.
Okay. As in games we've just been playing.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Gingerbeard, shall we start?
We can do. Played in the OSC double bill from your Discord server on Saturday. Said played. Actually, I ran the first session, didn't I?
You did, yes.
Yes, you did.
I'm so fortunate to have Slan as one of the players. He is a meticulous note taker.
We're all fortunate because we all
many
forget where we
problems.
got to, yeah.
Yeah. That was good. You guys finished off Sword and Shield, which I can say is probably the worst Thunder Rift module, but hey, we got through it. Never have to think about it ever again.
It played okay, though. It didn't play awfully. I mean, yes, it forcibly split party members.
Well, that was because I was doing a bit of juggling because it was meant to be like a solo module, like DM.
You mentioned that at the end of the
PC.
session.
Yeah.
And,
But given that two of the players got killed by lizard men, you're kind of, and I didn't muck around. I didn't increase the numbers of monsters.
Oh yeah, I mean it would be stupidly hard for a first level solo adventurer. Stupid.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I still can't believe I got my magic user into melee combat.
Well, he survived, didn't he? Yeah, he did.
Yeah, but with 3 hit points, you
Gotta do
don't
what
have a
you
lot
gotta
of
do.
leeway.
So whose characters died? It was one of Daniel's and
Omenal's
Omenal's.
Beastmaster.
Yes. Torn apart by lizard men. Meanwhile,
I think you recorded it as overestimated lizard men.
Underestimated lizard men.
Underestimated, yeah.
Great Albertus was beating the Le Chevalier Noir on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you guys let them survive. So there's a future antagonist for you. And then
Good.
the evening session, Yog ran. That was enjoyable enough. Druid character is probably a bit sad that he dealt the death blow to a giant weasel, but hey.
The weasel was tormented. Again, it was Daniel's character who was being utterly tormented.
Yeah.
If he hadn't rolled maximum hit points at every level, and
He just had the worst luck Saturday.
Yes. Hello, Emanel. Yeah, and I played in both of those games, and they were good. And I ran part 2 of Ladybug Fly Away Home for Call of Cthulhu on Monday night, and on the player characters. But they seem to be enjoying it. I wonder if Wayne's connection's improved. Wayne. Oh, that seems better.
It should be connected.
I'm
back in the house now. I was on the lawn with the dog. He had this sudden urge about an hour and a bit ago to go outside, and then he refused to come back in.
Well, dogs do that.
It's too nice outside. I can't blame him.
We were just discussing games we've been playing over the weekend. We went to Slan. You played in the.
Well, I played both OSC sessions, and I was going to run my Gamma World game on Friday evening, but I had to cancel. So that was it. We still have to reschedule that, but it'll probably be a couple of weeks, because in 10 days the gaming con here in Montreal is happening, so a bunch of us are going to be busy there.
La Belle Parmise.
Yeah.
That is happening on my birthday. So,
oh yeah?
Yeah. Cleric Con.
No, Cleric Con is 3 weeks later.
Oh, it is, yeah. No, Cleric Con is end of.
It's in a month. Yeah, it's the 3rd to the 5th.
Oh, you've got another convention, haven't you? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, there's one in Montreal in 10 days.
Oh.
So I have the 2 gaming cons like almost back to back. There's like 2-3 weeks between them. Be kind of nice to have a bit more space between them, but I'm not going to complain.
Will anybody be playing Starfleet Battles?
I'm not sure what I'm going to be playing yet. I'm actually helping out the Dungeon Minister with some stuff, so I'll be spending some time volunteering. And hopefully I can get in on one of Mage's Musings games, and also the Dungeon Minister's game. Also, one of his kids is running a game that I'd be interested in trying, so that could be fun.
Okay, and Saxius.
Yeah. Yes, I had my 2nd edition, which was the characters who is from an empire of necromancers. Basically, he arranged to teleport home and revisit his family, and there was a lot of role playing about that. The highlight was grown men being excited that they were now setting up treaties and import licenses for whiskey and coffee in that game. Followed by minor things like making alliances and securing help to fight an approaching lich. But the important thing is they have secured coffee for the future. My players' priorities.
You can get your spreadsheets out and work out how much they spend.
But so the dead can wake up. That's what coffee's for.
Yes. So so that's all been like pre-worked and set up, but they had a blast. I then had out of my 5th edition game with Elf, which was a good deal of fun. It was a lot more role play. There was a lot of combat to begin with, and the players basically took on it was combined forces between a group of water genasi or water elementalists and the fort that the players were from, because they had discovered that there was an encampment of enslaving Kuotoas in the nearby area. So, wishing to not impact the supply routes of the kingdom where they're getting all of their help from, because they're out in the frontier, they've basically had to go and deal with the Kuotoas to make sure that the waters are safe. And in doing so, they've also learned that, well, by getting rid of one enemy, they've opened up room for another enemy to move in. So there's now discussions. Yeah, they're now discussing of like, okay, do we try to like use our victory to, win over them, or at the moment, one of the players had a relatively good arguments that they should go back, gather up NPCs, hirelings, and followers, and then go to the next enemy and basically just lay down the might is right and get rid of any competition. So that's at the moment.
Consequences.
Yeah,
Consequences are so much fun.
Exactly. So that's the thing. But one thing I did drop on them, which the players are now also aware of, is that they can't keep running around and consistently fight monsters because they're on the frontiers. And if they can't find resources to sell back to the kingdom, the resources will dry up. Then it becomes a lot harder. So the players are realizing, okay, we've got to deal with this quickly. And then we have to look at like 3 major hooks that I've thrown at them. And they have to decide which ones they want to investigate to go out and do wilderness exploration to see if they can find anything of major worth for them to then start sending back to the kingdom. So yeah, that's me.
So if
Wayne!
Saxus, if you have a TPK,
Wayne,
is this like going to be like the last colony where the next group of players
trying to find a
shows up
paperclip
to see what happened?
At the moment, the way it's set up is that the colony has survived for 2 years, but they are on their last wits. Like they need a break, and this is where the players and a bunch of other NPCs have come in. They have to go out and do basically like deep diving investigations and explorations to find the next thing that they can start exploiting and sending back, because right now it's just another farming and hunting colony. They don't have anything of major exports. So they need the players to do this. If this fails, there are backup characters that can come in, but it's the whole idea of the moment we start going towards winter, it will be very tough. So we'll see where it goes for now, but if a TPK happens, I will do a time jump, and that will have its own consequences.
And all games should have consequences. So Wayne, I don't know what games you play in. Did you play any over the weekend? Any stories you want to share?
I haven't had a decent chance to play in ages, and it's really been bugging me because locally I just haven't been able to find players, which is why I've been trying to manage to hit the OSE things. I'm basically here to listen and commit.
Okay,
you guys are going to entertain me.
We do have a topic for us to talk about tonight. Well, we shall see. Right, we have a topic we should talk about tonight, and as you may or may not be aware, it is October, and October has some significance in our fantasy gaming world. Wonderful date, All Hallows Eve, Halloween. Thus, I have declared this is a month for horror. So I'm hoping you've got some horrific things to talk about. Now, we've already had a question from Skivens, Science with a V. So before we get into the topic, a quick horror movie recommendation for those of you who like horror movies.
I like to go for the old classics. So we're talking Bela Lugosi and all of those. It also depends what he's looking for. There's a recent vampire flick I quite like called Suck, about a little band that sort of tours the northeastern Canada and US, and one of the band members becomes a vampire and slowly turns all the other vampire members of the band into vampires. the band leader, who's still human, keeps giving in to everything. Well, okay, but this is the last time. And it's got two wonderful things, which are great music and great cameos by a lot of old rockers. They basically got Alice Cooper, Iggy Pop, Alex Lifeson, I forget who else to show up, just to play bit parts throughout the film, which is great fun. Yeah, that's it. But I, if you haven't seen them in a while, it's worth going back to, like, the Dracula with Bela Lugosi, the Frankenstein with Boris Karloff, the Phantom of the Opera with now his name escapes me, but I'm sure you know who I mean.
Bela Lugosi,
No,
I think.
I'm sure I can find
No,
it,
it wasn't him.
but it'll come back to me too late. I'll put it in the chat when I find it.
Oh, I was waiting to see who you named for your classic Wolfman.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah.
Jack Russell. You guys did see Werewolf by Night, didn't you?
Yeah.
Ginger
Lon
Beard,
Chaney is who I was
horror
looking
films.
for the Phantom of the
Horror
Opera.
films. I did take a dip with a free month on Shudder. I have been subscribed to Shudder before and quickly remembered why I unsubscribed, because it's a lot of crap with some decent stuff scattered about. But one film that I did watch on there, which I enjoyed highly, is Moloch, which is a kind of Dutch folk horror film. That surprised me. That was really enjoyable. Trying not to give spoilers. But yeah, if you like folk horror, and they dip between Dutch and English, so it's not like you're a slave to subtitles throughout. Yeah, enjoyable.
Saxius, horror films?
I don't watch horror films, full stop. So I would more or less recommend things that are more psychological. Like Shutter Island or anything Inception, because when it comes to anything that's, for me, I really enjoyed like anything that's like brain teasing, or like where you have to really pay attention to the small details. But like outright horror, I have got no clue on that because I intentionally don't watch them.
Well, I'm going to say now, I don't watch horror films either because I am extremely squeamish to visual blood and gore. Which I know the people who play Call of Cthulhu with me probably already know that, but my horror descriptions and the things I come up with during those games either come from the material I read or lurking in there. And when I say I don't really have any sort of inspiration for what's in there, that people might find that disturbing with some of the things that have happened in the games I've run. So no, I'm not mimicking anything when I run horror games. I'm just dredging from what my mind comes up with.
And it's a very twisted mind.
And I will say I have run some horror games where there have been events that are none too pleasant. Is that right, Gingerbeard?
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
But I mean, the last horror film I saw was the Blair Witch Project, and I didn't mind that because it had no blood and guts in it.
Well, that's part of it.
That
is
sort of thing.
Some horror films are what I call a ketchup fest.
Yeah, I'm not interested in
and
that.
Others are Blair Witch, or they're very psychological, and some people prefer one over the other. I personally like the more humorous stuff. I think Bubba Hotep is a good example of horror with humor that I quite enjoy. which it's basically, for those who don't know, it's set in a retirement home, and the main characters are a black man who claims to be John F. Kennedy, whose brain was transplanted into the body of said black man, and Elvis, who the reason the person we found who thought was Elvis died was like an impersonator he would sometimes hire so he could go away and get away from it all. And when the guy died, everybody thought Elvis was dead, and by the time he came back, it was too late. So that's the kind of setup Bubba Hotep has, and they're fighting a mummy.
Right. And I'm just going to add in, Iman's lurking in the background.
Oh.
Hi, everyone.
How's your audio,
Hello.
Iman? Is it all right?
Yeah, it should be good.
Iman, horror films.
So whoever was saying about psychological horrors being better, I'm very much on that same page. I prefer the stuff that makes you think and sort of keeps you on the edge of your seat rather than the outright blood and gore. A film that I watched back in the day, maybe about 10 years ago, was called Exam. It was kind of mundane, but the fact that it kept me thinking was like, yeah, it wasn't outright horror. There was people being murdered and shit, but it wasn't. It was like the build-up of it that made it what it was.
Yeah.
See, my wife is the opposite of me. She watches absolutely anything with blood and gore in it. The more the better. And it is quite disturbing, some of the things she
Has she seen the latest Saw movie then?
I do worry sometimes.
Is she a fan of the Saw franchise?
I don't know. I know she. I remember her reading, for example, American Psycho, the original book, and then banning her brother from ever reading it because she was worried about how it might make him end up, because she was always worried about him becoming a bit of a psycho. I don't pay attention to what she's watching. I think she has seen Saw. I think she has seen the various Saw films, but certainly never when I've been here. And Hostel might be another one that she's seen.
Mm-hmm.
I seem to remember her watching that, and that's fairly icky. It's my wife's husband. Thank you very much. I would hope not, because when we got married, she was about 22, so that would be rather alarmingly quick going.
So he thinks.
Oh, right. Okay. So, anyway, we're talking about horror monsters on this stream. We're not. I mean, it's not a stream to talk about horror in general, because we have Adam asking about what makes horror tick. And that's really not the focus of this particular one. Yeah, I think she prefers horror to slasher. I think more than anything. So that's fair to say, Andy. But the horror's got to have gore. So anyway, we're going to be talking about horror monsters rather than the horror genre in general. So first, sort of to put out to my panel tonight, if you are running a game that is intended to be horror, what creature you would put in there? And let's start with the fantasy genre. If it's a fantasy genre, let's say you're going in maybe in the Ravenloft setting or something similar. Obviously, you think, hey, vampires. But is there a go-to creature that you would put in to make things a bit uncomfortable, and why?
For me personally, I would start by adding extra appendages.
Okay. Just
so like forearms or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, make them do something to make it stand off. Because let's start out with the first major problem that comes with doing horror in a game like fantasy, and that is the good old saying: if it bleeds, if it's got stats, we can kill it. Which is a lot of the mentality that many players will come in with. So as a DM, it very much comes down to what can you do to obscure, because the biggest fear you can really throw at your players, it is going to be the unknown or the lack of knowledge or anything that will keep it from just becoming a box standard fight. And then at that point,
that's literally point 2 on my sheet. That's literally point 2 on my sheet here.
So
the unknown.
My point is, if you're going to be doing, if I was to take something, like Iman said, if I was going to take something for the intention of horror, I will take either the mundane and I will find a way to twist it into something that is unrecognizable, or something that will be considered horrible. I would probably go so far as to say, like, I'll take an evil ghost or an evil spectre who will then go from house to house, and there will be specific traits that the players can then work on. So it's a bit of a mystery, bit of also the horror, but it will then be down for the players to then find out, why are people suddenly having murderous rages during the night? Why are these things happening? Why are sacrificial events taking place in this home, who are otherwise rather religious, or anything along those lines? Something that will then keep the players guessing, and anything I can do to remove this sense of safety and then keep that balance of tension and stress, so that it doesn't reach to the boiling point where players will just throw up their arms and go, we're leaving. We're just going to leave. This place can go to hell.
Well, that's one thing I do want to...
That's a hard answer to follow up.
For me,
I'm sorry, go on.
The key is that you've got to take away their much treasured agency, because part of horror is hopelessness, helplessness, hopelessness. That if they are free to leave whenever they want, what's the point? What is the point? You've got to give them a reason to stay. It's either going to be a very good reason to stay or a way to force them to stay. But coming up with ideas of how to force them to stay is the hard part.
So
go on.
Sorry, but to go back to the monsters, my answer is twofold. Is if it's first-time players, there are a lot of great horror monsters in a lot, D&D and stuff. The zombies, the skeletons, the ghouls, ghasts, they're... If you've never played before, you can present them in horrific ways. The more experienced players, however, have encountered them before. They're more blasé, if you will. I will then tend to want to have them care for some NPCs, have said NPC disappear, and then maybe come back as the monster or part of the monster. Here I'm thinking like the Chimera in Full Metal Alchemist, where they're a combination of beast and human, and you recognize who the human was, and the human is still has some of their own, they've gone half insane, but they're still recognizably themselves. And if the players cared for that NPC, then that also brings horror, because in addition to the helplessness, there's the, oh my God, this horrible thing is happening to someone we care about.
One good example maybe for that is Cthulhu's Migo, if you sort of bring them into D&D in some way, and fantasy in some way, because they like to take their take living brains and put them still sentient in jars. And you could find yourself communicating with the brain of a good friend in a jar.
You absolutely can do. I mean, I've also gone the route of things like, I think they're called mongrel people, where they are, part as Slan said, part human, part something else, and you then make them the result of like vile experimentations. And now, the players are coming in, they might look monstrous, they might go and they might attack them, and then all of a sudden they learn where they came from. They learn that they've now done very evil deeds because they've now killed or they've attacked innocent people who were crying out for help. And now you can start putting in all of these other things. But yeah, it's there are many ways to twist this around for it to be both evil and horror inducing.
Something
I'm
I'd
just going
like
to
to.
go and just bear with me. I'm just going to go and shut a few internet things down.
Yep, we can talk amongst ourselves.
Okay.
That's fine. I was just going to say I'd like to add on to both of your points that another element of horror, or possibly I guess you would call it terror, is knowing your normal weapons can't affect whatever monster you're coming up against.
Oh yeah, having like the typical werewolves, only silver can
Yeah, that
do
sort of
damage
shit.
to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Vampires, wooden stakes, that sort of shit.
exactly. Things like that, like anything like that, where the players all of a sudden, like even if you have like again a mage within the group, bear in mind they are finite in their magic, and anything that can be done to spook them. Again, like it's all about the DM being creative. Like if we use a werewolf, really playing into the whole concept of it is a wolf, it is stalking, and it's a intelligent predator that so it would quickly learn. Oh, if I make these noises, my prey will react as such. So the idea of like it will intentionally snap a twig off in the distance and get the players to look one way and then be focused on that direction for a little while it stalks around, darts out, do a quick attack, and then runs off. The wizard might be saying, "Oh, I'm gonna turn around. I'm gonna cast fireballs." Like if it's the right conditions, foggy, a lot of bushes and shrubberies around you, anything like that, where the werewolf can jump in and out and be out of the line of sight. Suddenly, the powerful fireball. Well, it's out there, but it's not so much. It's not as viable as before. And again, a clever werewolf, if it retains the intelligence of a human who might have encountered such creatures before, well, they learn, and it's not like they fight till the death every time.
Well, wolves are persistence hunters, right? So
Yeah.
So werewolves would be the same, and they would stalk their prey and weaken it. Like you said, they distract it. They'd get it to, shoot their arrows, shoot their fireballs, magic missiles, whatever. Use up their resources on distractions, and then when it finally attacks, like the party is exhausted, the party has few resources left, and that's when it's going to attack. That's what wolves do. They don't attack outright. They keep running after the deer, elk, whatever they're after, and they just exhaust it, literally exhaust it to death, and then it's fairly safe to attack. So werewolves should do the same with their party, and being in the situation of being the hunted there can become quite horrifying if it's presented well by the DM.
Yeah. Again, it's the whole like play on the shadows, play on the mind, play on the sound of what the players are taking in, and a lot of it's also going to be down to, counteract, some of these things that the players see. After a while, the werewolf might learn, oh, it's got an elf amongst them who only sleeps 1 hour, in the day, but during that hour, it's vulnerable, and that if it doesn't sleep during that 1 hour, then that's quite important. So anything along those lines, they can become quite devious. I'm interested. I'm going to look up what the intelligence of a werewolf is.
I mean, you don't even like all lycanthropic creatures are pretty terrifying for a fantasy party just because of their infectiousness. Like, even then, it's a DM roll and it's ambiguous. Like, even if you did get hit, have you been infected? Well, let's play it out. At which point, the other player characters are probably getting a bit paranoid as well. So that's the fun of weird creatures, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I haven't heard the
It
first few
definitely
minutes
is.
of this.
Adding some
heard the first few-
paranoia is a great way to ramp up the horror aspects too.
Yeah,
I mean, we're
absolutely.
talking about films. The Thing by
Mm.
John Carpenter is a great example of that. But you can do it with several monsters in D&D. You could do it with, some magic using thing with a doppelganger, And if you can have the cooperation of one of the players for that, you can really get a memorable session happening.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think part of the issue for me with the monsters you're talking about at the moment is they are very familiar, and a lot of players, certainly if you played and run games for as long as I have over the years, they can become over familiar, maybe a little jaded, a little predictable, and I guess I'm probably at the stage where something like a werewolf, I struggle to be nervous about it, because in my mind, we've all heard how to kill a werewolf, and it would be in the folklore of the game. It's the sort of tale that would be told to young would-be adventurers.
All right.
Were creatures.
Yeah, but
Let's-
sometimes all
Okay.
you need is a small change. Like, the
All
tradition
right,
Does
states
anyone line
silver.
up to be an adventurer?
Yeah, but
It's
the
not-
tradition states silver weapons will kill a werewolf. How about I just change it to copper?
This is what I'm coming to. So in order to make these creatures scary, change them.
All right, but when you
Change something
change
about
them,
Don't even have to. Do you know what weaknesses a werebore has?
If it's a were creature, then they'll be reaching for magic weapons and silver straight away.
Not silver for a werebore.
I didn't
Going by the
didn't
Van
capture them.
Richten's guides.
oh, the Van
Only-
Richtens, yeah.
Yeah.
They're good. They're very good.
I don't have the Van Richten's guide, so
No, but the point is, like, there are other resources out there that basically massively expands on the existing
good.
horror creatures that we have, like vampires, mummies, liches, ghosts, were creatures, the whole 9 yards. They're hugely expanded upon, both in terms of the fluff, mechanics. I mean, hell, like I've got, where are they right now? They're up on my shelf somewhere, but I've got one where it's basically
Doof and
the combination.
Elfbait are both kind of saying it's a gotcha. It's going to be interesting. In part of my OSC area, there is a weird creature, and obviously I'm aware that there needs to be a balance somewhere. So you guys are going to have to be able to find information about, well,
Okay,
what herb harms this weird creature.
let
We'll
me
see.
quickly address the whole thing of like, oh, it's a gotcha. No, it's not a gotcha if the DM puts in a bit of work here. Let's take the idea that, oh, this is a rare creature and it can only be affected by copper. Well, drop in hints. Make sure that there are events that brings the players to a place that will allow the players to investigate and find clues for these sort of things. Let's say that this rare creature was a foreman for a mine who came in, and rather than just like doing a respectful mining operation, they stripped the land of the trees, they ravaged it, and the druids were furious, all for the quest of just finding a morsel more of copper or whatever reason. Well, now they've cursed this creature to only be harmed by the very thing that they've sought after their entire life. Their greed will now be their undoing, and now suddenly you've got a plausible explanation. Angry druids, the powers of nature, curses, being cast upon someone. But all of this is something that the players can have to go out and learn. And yes, it can be seen as it's a gotcha, but when the players go out and they do some investigation, some exploration,
Iman, you're loud.
maybe some role playing, the other pillars of the game, then all of a sudden all of these things will fall into place.
Yeah. There's another thing you can also do, which is most of the monsters we've mentioned come from, you know, more or less a European tradition. You know, the vampire,
Oh
the
man, you're going to bring up the
werewolf.
pangolin. I've always wanted to throw in a pangolin.
Yeah, but there's a lot of other. You know, Japan has tons of wonderful yokai. They're very strange, weird, and some are quite horrifying. You know,
Like the
Central
Umbrella
South
one.
America also have some interesting things, and or the native North Americans. The
The
a lot of
chupacabra.
yeah. There's a lot of interesting things we can find in other cultures that could be used for that. And the thing you don't want to do is say, you know, even if it's a werewolf, you don't want to say, "Oh, you see a werewolf." No, you describe it, and you know, eventually they might find out what it actually is, or you might tell them in once the session is over. But describing this monster they're totally unfamiliar with, that has its own set of vulnerabilities that they're not familiar with in a metagaming aspect, can also increase the horror in the game quite a bit, if again presented correctly.
I can see that both Doof and Elfbait aren't keen on the idea of changing monsters, but I don't have an issue with changing monsters. But as Saxia says, I think there should be. This is no normal were creature. Stories being told about did not fear the silver. So it gives the players an impetus. And I like it might be my Call of Cthulhu thing, but I like the idea of having a degree of investigation in a horror scenario, whatever the system. So the emphasis is on the characters to try and find out exactly what this creature think. But that's just my opinion. I don't always use standard monsters. I like to mess about with different monsters. So, I mean, you fought what was that bird you fought in my OSD game? A giant, oversized chicken, things like that.
Yeah,
little turtle men, and who are now your friends, and gelatinous cheese. But this.
See, going back to your
Silly.
earlier point about how it's hard to get nervous about stuff that's done to death, it's also hard to get excited about that same stuff. So when I came across that gelatinous cheese, I was like, what the fuck? This is unlike anything I've experienced before. And it
was a standard D&D monster just presented as a cheese.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, who else would talk about an amorphous blob of cheese?
There may be other DMs out there who've done gelatinous cheeses in the past. I'm not going to claim to be the only one who's ever dreamt up that, but hey ho. Oh, he's here to tell me I'm wrong. Thought you were working, Eli.
I am, but I have about an hour till I'm really slammed, so I figured I'd slip on here, especially as I seem to be arguing in the comments.
Hello, Brian.
No, I think you have a fair point. I think if I like for example, my suggestion of copper, I would actually probably make a whole bunch of changes in the world that way. Yeah.
So I am the last guy to say that changing up a monster subtly is wrong. It's the rationale that I have a problem with. I mean, if you're going to throw a werewolf at somebody and then you're going to change it enough to where it's not a werewolf, why use a werewolf in the first place? Why not create something else that's creepy and weird and fills the same role as a werewolf, but functions in the way that you need it to? Similar to what you're saying about Call of Cthulhu, one of the things about Call of Cthulhu is so many of the monsters are unknowable or lesser known to a lot of people. Some of them are still well known, but also you don't tend to run a lot of things as written anyways. So when you're doing that, like I would find it much more satisfying as a player to go into an adventure, think I'm running into a werewolf, and find out that it was something completely different than a werewolf, other than to run into, it's a werewolf, but it's copper, not silver. Gotcha.
Oh,
Oh,
would
I'd call
have
it something
looking a
else for
little,
sure, and
yeah, you'd
I'd
have it a
make it
little
different in
something a
other
little
ways
different.
too. But
The people of the town might think it's a werewolf. Different.
I think we're losing John. Sure,
Yeah.
I come here and
Yeah.
we're losing John.
yeah,
Oh,
He comes
yeah,
in, he
my
goes.
goodness.
And what he was starting to say is kind of exactly what I'm on about. If you want to change it up and you want to surprise the players, then go into it with a little bit more groundwork. Lay it out to where maybe you are sort of misdirecting, not a bait and switch, but a misdirect. Because I've done that before, like
and actually,
slash marks and hair deposits, and
one of the aspects of horror is the surprise that things are way worse than you thought. So
yeah,
they
Yes.
might think it's a werewolf, but it's a whatever else that's even worse than the werewolf. And now
Well,
we're
and
in
you
even
could even
deeper
go
shit
with,
than we
like,
thought we were.
they
2 werewolves.
two werewolves,
Yeah.
I think we are all in
goblins riding
agreement that
werewolves. What that are in
There's an
wolf
old tale
form.
there's an old Tales from the Crypt comic where they're looking for a vampire, and what they don't realize is it's actually a couple, and I think she's the vampire, he's the werewolf, and they can hide each other's tracks, and he can make sure to transport her during the day and whatnot, and that's how they evade.
Well, a great example of that would be a really cagey vampire who, on the night of the full moon, is when he does his hunting, and he does it in wolf form. So all the wounds are those of a wolf, and it's timed only for the full moon. And so the party's like, we clearly have a werewolf. They go
Yeah.
hunting him down.
Are
They're
you-
like,
That's
You're a second edition Ravenloft module writer. Those
Is
are one of
that-
those ideas that sounds really cool, but then you sit down and the players just bimble around and they're like, "We don't get it." It's like, okay.
but
So
that's
here's
what I'm talking about. Like, you can misdirect and use the familiar monsters, but then again, I guarantee you could use something as simple as a goblin and make it horrible. One
but
lone
Ravenloft had
goblin.
them. They spelt goblin with a Y. I was going to say earlier that actually on a quarter of the deaths in the OSE game from goblins. That's pretty horrific.
Well, and
Well-
a lot of it's just presentation. I mean, whatever monster you're using. I mentioned in the comments too. Fantasy adventures for horror is a great opportunity to use those monsters that you will never figure out a place to use them in a dungeon. The real oddball stuff that often is, sort of a one-off, and maybe hits a little bit higher than the party is ready to take. Have that creeping around. Some sort of weird oddity, it lives down a well and it comes up into the village at night, and or it lives in the caves under the, on the coast or whatever. It's a good example, a good chance to pull out those monsters that we will almost never use as DMs because they just are too oddball or weird to use in conventional dungeoneering.
That is true. I mean,
Good point.
the unknown the unknown and the unpredictable to me is important. And when conventional methods fail, and I've said it before, I'm going to say it now again. One of the worst pieces of advice that WotC ever gave was, in a horror game, you never want to make your players fearful. You just want to make the characters fearful.
It's an important distinction, that, actually.
I think that's wrong. I think there needs to be tension, maybe not fear, but tension amongst the players.
I think you need to maybe
you got to differentiate.
apply good intentions to what WotC was saying there, though. I don't believe that they were saying you shouldn't instill a sense of well-meaning fear in the sense that we get when we're watching a horror movie. I think they were saying you shouldn't make your players actually afraid and uncomfortable, like in a legitimate, real way. Like, don't
Yeah.
get so creepy that you end up on a list somewhere.
Yeah, like there's got to be made a differentiation between what
don't go so heavy that there's a police report about you when you're done playing the game. But clearly, it's okay to squeak out your players and make them feel a little bit uncomfortable at the table. That's what horror movies and horror books and horror comics do. So I don't think WotC was ever trying to say don't make them afraid at all. You want to have the fear factor that you get playing a good video game or watching a horror movie or something. That's my
opinion. Kind of vibing with that. It's like, just because Garth Ennis wrote Crossed doesn't mean you have to be that guy.
Fuck. No. Yeah. No, like yeah. I mean, no, that's
yeah. But I mean here, Chris says here, horror is theatre of the mind. If players can't feel it, then how can their characters feel it? I felt that they were talking about fear effects from monsters more than anything, and really trying to gamify it. That's how it came across. But
this is a worthy topic on its own.
Well, I'm going to come to this because this leads me into my. We've already gone into the unknown, whether known creatures are or are not scary, and to twist the familiar to make it unexpected. Groups of monsters that are used in horror are undead, and certainly in older fantasy games they put the genuine fear into players, but almost all of those reasons boil down to making the players feel as though they are not fully in control. You had your level drain, you had infestations and diseases, you had charm effects. I believe are staples of horror monsters.
I can't say I agree that it's because it took away the agency or was because I'm getting the impression that you like it because it was taking away like the agency of the players, because it was then forcing a level drain, it was forcing diseases upon them.
It made them truly fearful, I think, is what the point is. There is that because they had, in older editions especially, the monsters were so brutal and lethal that players legitimately feared them. It wasn't because I'm taking away your agency, but it is because charm in general worked a certain way. Getting charmed by a vampire or getting charmed by a sylph is the same charm in the old game, but the sylph usually doesn't want to kill you or enslave you.
That's fine. I'm just trying to understand like where this has come, like the background of this, because.
Well, let me emphasize a bit more. I mean, a lot of monsters are all about being the hero. You're the powerful ones, throwing back spells, swinging that sword, slaying the goblins, burning the trolls, and a lot of those creatures, the damage is in the form of hit points, and the players can imagine their characters being the mighty heroes. When it's powerful undead, a lot of these abilities of these powerful undead are things that strip that hero feeling from the players a lot of the times. Look at Sons of Chaos with their hideous diseases. Suddenly your character is wasting away. It instills fear and panic. Level drain. Your 5th level swashbuckling fighter has part of his soul ripped out of him and is physically weaker as a result. A vampire's charm. This evil being pulls you away unwillingly, or you're unwilling, but your character is willing, and your character goes to join him potentially for Life of Darkness.
Yeah, or at
It
least just
takes
turns
that
against the
hit.
party.
Yeah, it takes that sense of being the hero away.
Right.
Well, that's part of the whole horror thing, is the loss of control. There's a whole subgenre, body horror, which is actually about, loss of your identity because of a change in your own body.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
back.
some monsters could do that too. I mean, when I was a kid, the what were they called? Those weird things that would bore down into your flesh, and within a few rounds you'd die. And the only
Rod
thing,
grubs.
rod grubs, yeah,
Grubs.
those are
Rod grubs or
horrifying.
throat leeches are also nasty from the fiend folio.
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
those can
I
really
did
be
find out
horrifying.
that those are a real thing, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Throat leeches.
Yeah.
It's funny
Anyway,
you
go
say
on,
that,
Slan.
being a kid, Slad. Like a couple of weeks ago, it'd been about a month ago. Somebody else's game. We were playing through Castles in Tillin, and there was a room with loads of mirrors. And I jokingly, like, after one player got like his soul sucked into a mirror, joked about playing an X card because I was terrified as a kid of looking in mirrors. But actually, it was one of those, like, I'm joking, but I'm not really joking. Like, I did have a childhood phobia of mirrors. Like, mirrors freaked me out. Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, kind of go with what Slam was saying. Horror only works if the party and the players, to some degree, are vulnerable in some way. It's not going to be the same way with every kind of horror. It's isolation, resource poor, overpowered, out of their breath in some way. Like a lot of Call of Cthulhu adventures are like, I'm an ordinary librarian. What the hell do I have to do with cosmic entities that are going to doom reality? Yeah. But
But I think players, I'm not talking about player character agency here, but the agency of the player themselves can encourage the horror. And like one example is that, and I'm thinking of it because of your background, John. When we played that first game and my character became hysterical, and then I did the stupidest thing ever, which was to keep looking through all the doors to see what other horrors are, to keep compounding it, because I felt like if this was a horror film or horror story, that's what the character would do if he went hysterical. And so that's what I did, because I felt that as a player, you can contribute to generating horror to the other players by buying into it somewhat. And I'm sorry, Saxus, I know this is kind of off topic because players aren't monsters, though arguably they could be.
Players are monsters, of course they are.
They're terrible monsters.
They're needy, entitled, demanding monsters.
Has anyone played The Last of Us?
Okay, every time I come, he leaves. I'm now starting to think he hates me.
Yeah. I think it was Gingerbeard.
Okay. Gingerbeard's off. Gingerbeard's off. Right. Okay. I'm just going to try and switch across to Chrome, see if that works any better, because my internet connection is showing excellent, but my StreamYard connection isn't. So I'm just going to have to bounce from this, and I'm going to come back in Chrome.
No.
Alrighty.
So behave yourselves.
Will do.
Hell no.
So, Oscar, you're talking about player agency and stuff. For me, I think having agency is still important, but having the apprehension of thinking carefully about your next move, that's where horror comes in.
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. it's very much down to. I mean, I would disagree with John with the whole thing of they can't leave and so on. I was like, no, if the players want to leave, unless we are in a setting where leaving isn't an option like Ravenloft, I don't see a problem with the players saying, you know what, we're gonna bail. The damage to that is probably going to be the reputation if they took a job from somewhere else to go and deal with it, or anything to follow from there. But I very much believe that the players have the agency of making their choices. It's not that the DM really should be taking anything away from the players to say, this is what I want to do. I was more, but also I was trying to gauge what it was that John meant when he was talking about.
Well, I think the players between themselves sort of decide how scary something is, right?
Yeah.
I also
that's somewhat what I
question
mean
whether
by
or not it's
player
actually a
agency
real-
versus character agency.
I also question, though, if it's a realistic expectation that you're ever actually going to get your players afraid.
I
honestly don't think that that's that realistic of an expectation.
No,
you can achieve it now and again, but it is not likely to ever actually happen. You might have them feeling tense, but not.
Would I? So what are you saying, Bear?
So I've done it twice, and only twice.
Same, about twice.
And one
maybe
time it
3
was
times.
so good that we had a candle burning, and one of the players refused to look at me. So he was looking up behind me at the wall, and a spider had started basically doing circles around the candle holder. So all he was now seeing was this giant spider shadow behind me on the wall, and that just freaked him out to no end. But he was already halfway there. You got to be playing a horror game, first of all, for me. Like, it's got to be something they're buying into the horror. And then you guys were talking about the helplessness of the player, of the character. Absolutely. Like, if they feel empowered, you're never going to scare them. They're gonna be,
Well, it depends, because just to take Bloodborne as an example, like a lot of those monsters in there are quite Cthulhu-esque, and even though you are the hunter and you are powerful as all hell, they still fucking scare the shit out of me.
Yeah, but they're not going to scare the player to the point where the player's going to feel the horror, because the player's going to feel
no, they scare me as the player, but not my player character. My player character does whatever I say, right?
Okay, but I'm saying there's a difference between that and horror. You know what I mean? Like, there's a big difference between those two things. You could be scared. You could be scared you're going to lose your character. You can be scared your character's going to die. But horror is this feeling that hits you in the raw animal part of your brain. Your lizard brain completely activates in that moment, and you stop being a rational creature.
Fight or flight,
One of the worst things ever are people who scream at horror, who say, well, I wouldn't have done that in the horror film. Are you stupid? You don't know what you would have done in that situation because you're not rational at that moment.
I have an example of that from real life. So, you know how in the movies you always watch and you're like, oh, that's so cliche. They get in the car and it won't start, right?
Yeah.
My buddy and I, when we ran into audibly, we didn't see anything, but we heard something incredibly horrible in the night off the edge of the road when we were sleeping in his car, right? He went to start this car. This car starts without a problem. First turn of the key every time. It was so well tuned. He could not get that thing started because he was so scared that he couldn't coordinate the moves to get the car going. And then finally, when he did, we just peeled out and threw gravel everywhere.
No.
So, I mean, yes, you can say, well, I would never do that. I'd never run upstairs. Why would you run upstairs? You're trapped upstairs now, Or why would you go into the basement? Because you know what? You go into the basement.
It's not rational. No one's thinking. When people hit horror, when they hit the fight, flight, or freeze moment in their world, and they choose fight or flight, rational thought has left their minds. They are no longer rational. They are operating on raw instinct, and they're going to make bad choices. They're going to make stupid mistakes. It's hard to get players to that point in the game. And I agree with what Elf was saying. You might pull it off once, twice, maybe thrice, but you're not going to do it on a regular basis.
Go on, Omen.
The other point is that when you talk about a flight or fight response, is in almost all cases, is that your skill goes to your basic level of mastery, which is exactly what Elf is talking about. Is most people don't put in the car keys all the time, and they do it blindfold and everything else. They put it on. If they miss it, not a big deal. But if they missed that first time, then they start panicking, and then they're like, like
That's
you're talking
exactly what happened in that situation. It's like, why can't I get the key in? Or the downstairs basement thing. Like, yes, you hear a noise in your basement. Why do you go into the basement? Because it's more frightening not knowing what's in your basement than going into your basement.
So 2 things to build one on Elfbait says the oldest fear of man is the fear of the unknown, right? When we used to sit around fires and the wise men told us stories about what lived in the shadows or what was over the next hill in the next valley or whatever the case may be, that was terror. And it's in movies. Jaws is terrifying because you don't see the shark. It's unknown. If they show you the monster right away, usually in the third act, when you do see the monster, you go, well, what was in my mind was way scarier than that. That looks just like a puppet or a CGI graphic. That's one thing.
But you've just spent the last 45 minutes to an hour shitting yourself.
Well, exactly. So once you see it, it's not as scary anymore.
Well,
second thing, and Omar, just hang on. I got to get this thought out before we get detracted on this. Soldiers in Vietnam taught the American Armed Forces a fantastic thing, which was guys who were new, the first time they came under fire, either froze or freaked out and shot off all their ammo. Veterans with leadership and sergeants and things like that eventually learn to control that fear when they would engage and become still able to rationally think. But when you first encounter that kind of terror, you don't think, you react. Big difference. All right, sorry, woman. I just wanted to get
Halakar made this comment. I starred Halakar's comment about 40 minutes ago and forgot about it. But yes, he made that comment. Exact same thing. Yeah.
Well, that's going exactly what Bear's talking about. Is when we talk about monsters, there are certain things that work very well. One is having them out of sight. So such things as ventriloquism and darkness make the players think much worse things. One is they can't see it. They start shooting off stuff. They don't know what they're shooting at. It's things like that really amp that up for your intelligent monsters. When they can start doing that, it's the can I hear it just beyond my vision? There's nothing worse than saying, okay, you hear something, but your torch only goes out 30 feet. You can't see any further. Oh, great. It's that kind of thing that comes into it. For the most part, the other thing that's always a lot of fun, and we're going to talk about monsters, but these are very common, but people have numerous fears of these, are things like centipedes and giant spiders. And having those come around, especially if you can make those little chittering noises or stuff like that you hear from the exoskeletons moving against things, that works really well on people because most people are creeped out by those anyway.
Just want to just dive in with dirty history and hobbies here. I've not seen the film, but I know that if I was to quote the lyrics to the Pixies song "Debaser," which mentions this line, "Sing Up Us" is a line from that song. There we go. I just thought I'd mention it. Anyway.
Well, but now we're talking that's body horror. That's a different beast completely, right? Like a Cronenberg film has never scared me in my life. It's body horror. Body horror just revolts me. It doesn't scare me. Some people it terrifies because they have that thing in their head where body horror messes them up. Cosmic horror is the thing where you can't answer the question why. Everything that is happening, everything you're going through, if someone asks the simple question, why is this happening? There is no answer. And that's what makes cosmic horror so fantastic. Alien, the first Alien, is the best cosmic horror I've ever seen on film.
I'm going to bring up something when you're talking about body horror.
Sax, you stay. I'll go, man. I got some stuff to do. I just wanted to come in and say hi because I'm in the new place, and I just wanted to say hello. So I don't want Sax to leave because already Gingerbeard.
So the move went well?
I feel horrible. Hey, it went very well. I just got to get some bookshelves.
Well, it looks like you have decent internet.
I feel naked back here.
You got decent internet too, which is one of the things you're
very good.
Sorry, what was that?
Decent internet. You'd complain that you.
This is actually garbage internet. I'm getting the decent internet next week, but the garbage internet's working well, so I'm not.
I'm supposed to have faster internet than you've got, and yet mine plays up every week.
Well, you're in the UK. It's waterlogged. That's the problem.
Cheers, Bear.
Rusted. All right, guys, have fun. I just wanted to say hey, say hi, and all that good stuff. And
see you later, Bear.
Later. Bye now.
All right, cheers.
See you later, Bear.
No, I'm going to mention, when you're talking about body horror, and this is when the characters are slowly starting to move over there. And I know that the Grumpy Old Slan talked about when you start losing pieces. That's why leprosy was so terrifying to people, is that they would lose bits and pieces of themselves. And whenever you have that in the game, especially with mummies, the mummy itself isn't that scary. We've all seen that. It's the effect of the mummy with that's really bad. I mean, level drain isn't what scares me. It just pisses me off. But the other part, that's I'm like, hey, I had to work hard for this, and you're just stealing it from me. But then the other part is, but with the other part of that, but this is why I like Warhammer Fantasy role plays, when you start getting the corruption, and then you might have an eye pop on your chest or something, so you have to keep it hidden. And or if you start hearing those voices, that's when you start knowing you're becoming the monster. That's what starts with the characters, and they know that they're down that path. But D&D's maybe not the best for the games for that, but there are other games that do that very well, and I think that helps. As you get corruption points, you start seeing the effects of the corruption points. Now you have to start hiding these things. Yeah. Otherwise, your character is going to be hunted down. And the question is, do you embrace it, or do you deny it? And then that's even worse for your play if you have a player group and they go, well, do we need to kill this person before they become the monster or not? I think that's the other part that comes into it, because then you start losing trust among the characters.
Do you want to say hello to a few people? Hello, Kabuki. Hello, Nerdy Ogre. Hello, RW Bishop. Sneaking. And Manfred has popped in as well. So lots of new people.
Yeah, Manfred, your oinking is not scary, though.
Hi, Manfred.
Listen.
Yeah.
I can pull out one of the...
I don't.
So you're going to pull out what?
It is working.
So I do believe that Batman had one of his enemies being like a pig man or something like that, where the whole idea is that like he butchers people in a sort of fashion. So if you want to leave behind like the noise of oink, that with enough like negative reinforcements, the players can start associating a specific noise with a specific thing that could be happening, and then you can make them afraid of what it is that you need them to do. But again, it requires the effort to be put in to build it up. But that's back to the building of suspension and tension in order for this to become an effective tool.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead, Omenon.
Well, I know that you mentioned doppelgangers. Like, well, doppelgangers too frequently. Depends on how you use the doppelganger. And the other part is you have to get the players to be willing to play along with it. If you can get that, then that works out as a really terrifying thing, because everyone treats doppelganger, so it just attacks you. If it slowly sabotages you until the very end, then they start seeing it. And if you're low level, a doppelganger is pretty terrifying. And I think that's part of it too. Is a lot of times when we're looking at stuff like, well, I'm 7th or 8th level. Like, well, that's not that scary at 7th or 8th level. But if you're 2nd or 3rd, a doppelganger is pretty terrifying.
It can. I mean, certainly the first time I ever encountered one in the game of D&D, it made me very nervous. I didn't know what was happening. My DM employed it in quite an interesting manner. But once you learn what a doppelganger is, and doppelganger does, there are ways of trapping them. You've just got to spot it first. But certainly, yes, I would say the doppel. It was in the module B3, Palace of the Silver Princess, and that doppelganger wrecked my party completely, and I didn't know what was happening, and that was quite nerve-wracking. It was quite nerve-wracking. Anyway, I want to come. Speaking of I want to just ask you all a quick question now. The most scary or disgusting, whichever you want to go for, monster in any role-playing game that you've come across?
The Marlborough from Final Fantasy is a good shout.
The what?
The Marlborough from Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
I'm not familiar with that. Not familiar with it.
It's a big fuck off green horrible tentacle blob monster with no eyes, just a huge row of pointy ass teeth, and it has a signature move called Bad Breath, which poisons, blinds, and silences your party.
I am sending a picture
Is it
into
scary?
Discord.
Is it scary because it has visual effect? It's
scary because it can fuck you up and because it looks disgusting. Like,
so
if it gets the first attack off, you're dead.
I was basically going to say, I mean, what it looks like.
Yeah, by what it looks like, it's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, no, I found a picture here thrown into to Discord. It's, as he said, just like a giant mouth at the center, and there is a multitude of eyes both on the top and below, and you can't make out, what it really is. It is a very Lovecraftian creature by the looks of it, just a sign.
I don't dare open Discord because of my internet.
Listen, this is like old video game graphics, so you're fine.
Which one did you find it from?
I'll just throw in a link.
The Final Fantasy X version is probably the most graphically accurate and disgusting one.
Have a picture you want to share on screen of it?
I'll get it up here. It's
okay.
Like I said, not that well pixelated, but I'll see if I can get this done.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to potentially spoil the an adventure. I mean, I don't know if anyone's.
It's just a picture.
Okay. Ooh.
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah.
Ooh. That's interesting. It's like a more tentacled beholder shuffling around on tentacles with a bigger mouth.
Yeah.
Sort of.
So the thing that's scary about it, as well as how it looks, is the fact that if it attacks you first, you are fucked.
I can't think of anything, honestly, because I'm not a player very often.
Any of the enemies from The Last of Us are also a good shout.
But also, I have a really high threshold for you. I'm like, all right, I could probably draw worse.
well,
I've created worse.
Yeah.
And the problem I have sometimes with the pictures is that they're not. Oh, what do I call it? It's the uncanny valley that I find the worst. Is when you hit that part where it's human enough but not quite human. That it hits that uncanny valley for me more terrifying than a lot of these other things.
I will say the ones that have got me before are not so much the creatures themselves, but it's how they're presented. Mostly in like video games. Somebody mentioned the lickers from Resident Evil. The first time I ever saw one in a game, it's the eeriest encounter because you come into a hallway that has a window at the end of it with a brick wall, and in the 2 seconds, or not even a second that you come, that the scene loads, you see one creep across the wall outside the window, and then you don't run into it forever in the game. But now I know it's there.
Are you talking about the RE2 remake or the original?
I'm not that big of a video game guy. All I know is
I think the original, the liquor was on the ceiling in the cutscene. But in the remake, it flashes past the window, and then you see it later on.
Yeah, that's probably the one. That's got to be the one I play because it's that same hallway that after you go down in and trigger something in the level, the next time you come through it, zombie arms bust through the windows and come after you. But like you can go down that hallway a dozen times before you trigger that thing in the game, and then you do, and then like the next time you walk down it. But the other one is there's a game called Land of Pain, which is a really low cost indie game that is just a creepy walking simulator that just presents everything in the most weird, macabre way. And when you finally see the creature that's stalking you, it's just this formless, shadowy thing, but you'll see it like skirt between two pieces of a building way out of ahead of where you're going. And the game is set up to where if it ever starts chasing you, you're fine as long as you never look back. If you look back at it, it will catch you. But you want to look back because you want to see the monster that's chasing you. And then like they have like it's always the weird setups. So it's like in there, for example, you find a book that's got a sketch of a deep one in it, and then later on at the end of the level, you've got to get in a boat and go across an open lake in the dark. And then right before you reach the other side of the lake, you run out of gas. So now you have to get in the water. You have to get in the water.
Well,
it's never the monster itself. It's just the way that it surrounds it. That's what's always making me go, and get all weirded out. And like Land of Pain was so bad that at times I'd play it for like 30 minutes and then just walk away. Because at the time my computer was out in the garage too. So I'm like, well, I'm not sitting out here by myself while I play this.
Yeah.
well, you know, speaking of which, my friend refused to play Alien Isolation because
that game is super creepy.
Yeah, I kind of refuse to play it as well.
And it's funny because when you look at it, it's like, all right, but it's hard to kill. You hear the noise coming around. When you hear the thump, 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 so you're like, where do I hide? Where do I hide?
Well, also knowing that thing literally has free reign of the station through all the air ducts and everything.
And it learns from your behavior. That's the scary part.
And it actually has in-game senses. If you are hiding under a desk and accidentally tap the tin can that's near your character's foot, it will hear you.
Oh, yeah.
There's actually 2 AI systems that it runs on. And it's somehow, I don't know how they work exactly, but they work in conjunction to keep it near you, but not exactly at you all the time.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, it's the atmosphere that gets you, and it is the somewhat like you're talking about. While you're talking agency, it's somewhat of the powerlessness of doing things. I mean, you know, I was reading the Van Richten's guide for vampires, and the elder vampire, it's like you can barely do any damage to it. It regenerates so quickly. It's immune to just about everything, including sunlight. How the hell are we supposed to beat this thing? You know.
Okay, scariest. I mean, in terms of monsters, adventure, because the hook in it is not great. It's the sort of thing you could. You could drop it into an ongoing campaign, but only after you've really made the players sort of care about their neighborhood and their environment and the people there. But imagine the scene: you go into the basement of a house, and behind this door, all you can hear is the sound of a baby gurgling, cooing, giggling.
What are you talking about? Freaking
you know the adventure.
Damn Call of Cthulhu adventure.
Yeah. And then if you open the door, what is inside is this big glob of flesh made from it runs around on many pairs of baby legs. It has loads of baby arms sewn into it. It has been built by the owner of children from a morgue, and it gurgles like a baby, and it constantly secretes diarrhea from an orifice on the top of it. That is a particularly disgusting creature. Whoever came up with that idea, with that monster, is utterly twisted.
Yep.
Well, I mean, just the fact that little baby arms running around, you know, that's creepy. That's creepy enough. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just the atmosphere surrounding your monster. To see it in the broad daylight running around, it's not really the scary part. The scary part is, let's say that you're going down a tunnel, and then you start hearing you hear something slurping from behind you, as you're like, run! Like, well, we're trying as fast as we can. You know,
I mean, I would say really the best horror movies are those movies where you spend so much time catching little bits of lore and foreshadowing and where they frame shots. You ever watch those movies where they frame the shot to where like there's just way too much negative space on this screen. Something's gonna come out of that darkness, and it doesn't, and it doesn't, and it doesn't, and then it does.
Or the music. The music's the one that I hate the most. The music just keeps on ramping up and ramping up. You're like, just get it over with so I can break the tension.
What was that? The one Daniel Radcliffe movie, the Woman in Black or whatever.
Yeah.
She's literally in the background of so many shots, and unless you actually watch one of those shows that does the whole spoiler bit, you almost never notice it, except for on a subsequent rewatch. But she's in the background of so many of the shots where stuff's going on, and movies like that are just like creepy, where you're like something's going on in the foreground, and in the background you see something like glance across this.
Yeah, because I think they did the same thing with the remake of the It movie, where there are several instances where the clown face can be found in the background or somewhere else, just staring at one of the characters.
Yeah, there's a couple of times where normal people in the background are just acting peculiarly in that movie, and it's kind of hinted that it's actually supposed to be Pennywise.
Yep.
I do need to step away, and actually I need to say goodbye because I'm going to have a meeting I have to go to soon here. So.
Yep.
Okay, see you. Thanks for dropping by.
But I think when you're talking about some of the monsters, again, if they can do ventriloquism, darkness, fog, where they can make things blur, where they give characters get disoriented, all those things where sometimes it's the effect that's worse than the monster itself. And I know that's why Ravenloft was so great, because you could alter the landscape if you were the domain lord.
Yeah.
And you don't give the characters necessarily all the breathers all the time. Those are some of the cool things that are in there. And if you can get a good group that doesn't take it personally, if there's a traitor in the midst, you can really ramp up that paranoia.
Alterations of the environment are really good for instilling the ramping up the tension, instilling some fear. I know that wasn't the goal of your dungeon, John, but that teleporting portal was really annoying. But it could have been really scary if presented that way.
Well, what did they do, which I think is actually an excellent thing, is when it's off in the distance and you start seeing the lights going out as they start coming towards you.
Yeah.
I know something's coming. I can't see it. And the players, if they know what the monster is. Now, I know everyone was arguing about the werewolf. Well, the point is you should know if it's a werewolf until you actually face it down the first time. And then you learn the weakness, unless you have studying for it. The problem that I have nowadays is almost everything's common knowledge, whereas it used to be just a very few people knew things. It's like, oh, this monster, I've seen this a dozen times. You just take it through the heart. Oh, I do. Oh, you do this. You do that. That's the other part too, is as much as we talk about it, I still, again, I love the undead or things like that, but where they can bring things up. So, when we talk about level drain, yes, but what happens when your henchman gets to 0? He's coming back. And then what do you do when you face it? And that's the other part too, is when you have your monsters, this is where I think the Thing did such a good job, where it is the picture of your friends when it's not your friend and it's coming at you, or it starts saying things in the voice that you remember your friend saying, or a loved one. And you're just like, you want to kill it because it's defaming them. At the same time, you're still horrified because it's using those feelings against you. I think those are great and fantastic monsters from that aspect, because it does bring that horror aspect within there without necessarily making you so much afraid. It's as much as we talk about fear, a lot of it's just being creeped out. which is what a lot of times is what that goal is for.
Well, that's what horror is, right? Horror is not being scared. Horror is being disgusted. It's being a primal reaction of just, revulsion. That's horror. Suspense and terror. Those are the ones that get inside your brain, and those are the ones that cause you to have that ganglia twitch, where you're just not feeling proper. But for using the doppelganger idea, like the Thing, the best way to do that is to do it to a PC, but only you and the PC know, so they keep playing their character as per normal, and the rest of the players are completely unaware of what's going on. And then when it happens, it becomes much more poignant, and they feel betrayed, and you get a whole bunch of different emotion that wraps it up in it. Because if you just bring back, an NPC, they're not going to care. It's an NPC.
Well, no, but I agree with you. But again, the problem that you have is some people take it personally, and I said, if you're getting players to take it personally, that's where you have to really understand certain things. It's, are your players okay with some of this? And you do get some of that paranoia in there. But I agree. But I meant for the PCs is every time that they knock down one of your henchmen, that henchman's coming back, and so it's making the opponent stronger over time while you're getting
sure.
And so that's what I'm referring to.
Nothing harder for your players to fight than an army led by a necromancer, because as your soldiers are dying, his are growing, because he's just raising your guys to his side. Sorry, Kabuki Kid's killing me here with this. Why you do this to me, Dimmy? Dimmy, why you let them take me? It's really funny.
Another starred comment. I've been forgetting about starred comments. No, sorry, and again, brought it up. Long time ago on the stream, raising up dead teammates and adored NPCs as zombies.
The problem is D&D zombies are kind of meh, but if you can get them so they're somewhat intelligent and things like that, that to me is what really gets the players. Is all of a sudden now they're fighting their friends that know they're weak.
Although not a horror game, Mortal Kombat's very good at that.
Mortal Kombat?
Yeah, raising former, good characters as bad characters, through necromancy and stuff.
Right, with you. Like the Lazarus Pits, just you coming back less and less sane, more and more evil.
Oh, in DC, the Lazarus Pits, yeah, exactly, yeah. Resurrection has its own little bugaboos attached to it.
But like going into again maybe a bit more, horror monsters. I mean, we keep on going back and forth, like, okay, you can see them and so on. So sometimes, like, having somewhat a creature that can just do the things that will get underneath the players' nerves, not in an irritating way, but like it will be enough for them to start becoming, as we said, paranoid. And there are a multitude of ways that can be done, like Mage Hand, just moving things around, and especially if it's then reinforced and have invisibility cast upon it. Just the idea of like someone playing the psychological games against the players to then.
I would agree and disagree with you, Sax, and I'll tell you why I disagree. D&D is played out. Okay, I'm sorry. Everybody, unless you got brand new players, it's played out. Everybody knows what the class abilities do. Everybody knows what the spells do. Everybody knows what the monsters do. It's played out at this point, 50 years later, right?
Yeah.
So it's very hard to, you really got to jump through some hoops, like you're saying, to really, really shock the players at this point in time, unless they're complete new, they've never encountered that thing before. But, the minute they see a troll, they start lighting fires. Even though their characters don't know, they start lighting fires, right? So, for me, one of the greatest freedoms is stepping away from D&D, because once you step away from D&D and you introduce your players to a new game, be it fantasy or the dreaded doesn't like sci-fi, you can actually now surprise them. You can actually now do things to them that they haven't done 50,000 times already in a Gygax module or someone else's module, right? I'm just saying.
I'm going to bring it a little bit differently, which is I agree with you in the part that all the known abilities. But that's part of the reasons I like grabbing other games and taking their abilities and bringing them in.
For sure.
So I don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, D&D isn't my favorite system, but there are certain things like I love grabbing a lot of stuff from the World of Darkness and then throwing it in. And the players have no clue on what the capabilities of the monsters are. It's like, well, yeah, because I'm following a different rule set than what you think I'm following. even if I'm following the rules as written, I'm doing it from a different system to have different effects. Go ahead.
Chris just made a really good point in the chat. Raise Dead. You want to fuck with your players when they cast Raise Dead on one of the party mates? What happens if a demon beats his soul into that body?
Oh no! You're talking about the demon. I was just thinking about that.
So you and the player are in the know. The rest of the party has no clue that their buddy who feels any time he doesn't know something or he gets something wrong, it's all part of being raised from the dead. You lose parts. And they'll buy it. They'll eat it until the next thing they know, they're delivering the magic device to the evil big bad that the demon is now working with. Through
that's a plot hole right there that I'm going to be stealing whenever I can.
well, the other one I enjoy is very similar.
Why am I not surprised?
It's so good at being evil in the best way. The players will love it and they'll hate it.
Well, possession by a ghost or something. That very similar to what you're talking about. It doesn't even have to kill. Well, the worst part is do you try killing the ghost, which means you kill the character. It's like, well, no, we have to exorcise the ghost from the character first. But the ghost has all the powers and everything else of said character. And that's when you're like, oh, crap. How do we deal with that?
What if they don't know?
Oh, well, that's even better.
What I'm saying.
Do both. Yeah.
What if they're not going, oh, crap, how do I deal with that? They think everything's right, and they go on 5 more adventures with the guy. Then they start figuring out shit's going south, and then they're like, oh, crap.
Well, exactly. But then you find out your friend's not really dead. They're just possessed. And now it's not just a direct combat that they have to deal with.
Well, no, exactly. The demon's in the body. Their soul's there, but the demon's in charge.
Oh, I was used to that.
What do you think you're a little dotted now? That kind of thing. I mean, you can have some fun with that. And then you're right, Omanal. It presents the moral quandary of we can't just kill this guy. But D&D rears its ugly head. What level is exorcism as a cleric spell?
I don't remember. What is it, 5th or 6th?
And what level is raised dead? What level is raised dead?
5, yeah.
5th.
So you're already at the same point where when you're raising dead, you have the ability to drive that demon out of them, right?
Yeah. Well, this is why I know we talked about death. This is why I like removing limbs, because raised dead is 5th, but regeneration is 7th.
When I run D&D, I get rid of clerics and I make all the healing stuff necromancy. So they have to actually deal with necromancers if they want to get all that good stuff.
That sounds good.
I will need to bounce because I need my beauty sleep about air thing. Was a good discussion. Please do continue.
All right, see you later.
Yes,
we will attempt to stay on topic.
Yes, sir.
Nah, go off, go crazy, scare me.
Okay. Beans, what's the deal with those?
No, I agree with you, Bears. Those are the fantastic.
What about the Habs this season?
Je m'en fous.
Moi aussi.
But yeah, I mean, those are the things that if you can get a good player and you get a group that doesn't take it personal, there are so many things that are great about that. It's just like, and the players, as long as they're okay with it and they want that horror surprise, then you're in pretty good shape. But I've known a few people that cry and whine, I feel betrayed. It's a damn game.
Well, John won't like this because John hates sci-fi. But I was back in the 90s, some friends wanted to play Colonial Marines, right? Aliens. I said, okay. And we started running a one-off of them as Colonial Marines. And of course, they go to the planet to go do the rescue mission, and they think they're chasing an alien the whole time. Like they're convinced it's a xenomorph. And after 4 of them are dead and one's left, and he gets outside and sees the shimmering in the rain and realizes it's not a xenomorph, it's a predator, they shit themselves. Even the guys who were sitting there just watching because their characters were dead were like, what the fuck? Like their minds were blown. Because if you switch it, you're going to get that surprise.
I'm going to say this is one of the things I like about Alien, their cinematic scenarios, is they give you different cards. And so one is the player isn't fully sure of their motivations. Like I give a card,
the android card, where one person finds out halfway through the game they're the android.
Well, they're the android, and then they find out that they're possessed, and they're working against the characters or
Yeah.
stuff like that. And well, there's that one. There's another one where they, it's going to blow up the ship, but they don't know they're going to blow up the ship until like the third act.
So wouldn't you like to see Free League, bringing it back on topic, take all of that good stuff they've done with Alien and Blade Runner and Mutant Future and all this stuff? They're the hell's the name of this system? It's got a name.
Mutant Year Zero.
Mutant Year Zero, yeah. This is
Or
the Year
Year
Zero,
Zero
engine. That's it. And make a really good fantasy competitor to D&D. I would love to see them do something like that.
They have kind of one with Forbidden Lands, kind of, but yeah.
Forbidden Lands licks. I'm sorry. If you're not into hex crawls and you're not into dungeons, it's a boring game for you.
I'll give you that. I will give you that. That said, it's kind of, but I'm not disagreeing with you. I think that would be the problem is that D&D, a lot of people who play D&D want that high fantasy. Whereas this is kind of where I like the Warhammer with that lower fantasy. Where you do get that feeling of both that dark humor and of course the and I guess it would be Against the Dark Lord. Is that the one that you're doing? Yep. Oh, I'm sorry, Against the Dark Master. Then what was the other one that you have there, John? Which was the
Middle Earth role playing, Murph?
Shadows of the Demon Lord?
Yeah, Shadows
of the Demon Lord, yeah.
It just depends on which way you want to go for some of these, by my understanding. So,
but here's the thing: if you're running a game called Shadows of the Demon Lord, your players are going to fully expect to be fighting demon lords, right? Like or minions. If I'm running against the Dark Master, my players are fully prepared to be. We're going to be dealing with the Dark Master, and that's what our entire campaign is going to be about. But if I'm running Fantasy Game X, and slowly but surely they're getting this plot revealed to them that leads into this, maybe cosmic horror, maybe traditional horror, whatever the case may be, it's going to be more effective because their characters are coming to the realization at the same time the players are, as opposed to them having to pretend to be ignorant and stupid for the first few sessions. And then, now we all know what's going on, So I think there's ways. I think one of the things we're missing right now in the marketplace is a really good generic fantasy game that could then be used to do those things. Wow, Squirrel Hermit, what the hell, man?
John, did you just see that with the $20?
I have just seen this. Thank you, Squirrel. You are a star. Shall we do that? Dance.
I'm not that the system was the best, but I love the monsters that they had in the Iron Kingdom role playing game.
Iron Kingdom role? I don't know that one.
That was the one where there was the hordes and War Machine that they made into a role playing game.
Never heard of it.
They had some great undead in there. It's kind of like, okay, you kind of feel like you're playing high fantasy. Not that I like the system the best, but I thought that and sometimes that's what it comes down to. What's the setting like, and what is the emphasis on?
I see. It's all magic tech. Yeah.
Well, it is, but then you have this other part where you start dealing with the undead, and their undead can be pretty scary. And I don't, the other part is Symbaroum, I think, does okay for the monsters. I'm just not a huge fan of the system.
I mean, I can see how the Symbaroum setting could be made to feel very creepy. But I mean, I played it once. It was a busy convention room, so there was very little in the way of atmosphere. None of us had played the game before, and it felt a little bit generic when we played it. But the setting itself certainly had vibes that could be used.
And sometimes I know that Bear's been talking this. I'm going to mention this part is, if you love a setting and you like a different system, just try modifying that system. Try bringing that system into the setting. The setting really doesn't care that much about the your system. So if you can get your system and work with that setting, then go for it. But that is one thing I did like about the Alien RPG. Go ahead. Sorry.
I say a lot of settings are designed with certain systems in mind already, or vice versa. They're developed together, and for a lot of the games, the setting is I would argue, for example, that 5th edition D&D is designed with Forgotten Realms in mind.
You know what's funny though is it was designed, but I remember growing up with 1E Forgotten Realms. So
Yeah. But they've changed Forgotten Realms, haven't they?
Yes, yeah. So they've changed some of that, but I like the older version myself better. But that's what some of it comes down to. It's like what kind of feel you're going for, and that's why I call 5e a Harry Potter the way it feels. But yeah, but yeah, I mean, but those are the things that, like for Simbarum, I think that you could use it with just about any setting, and then you just have to modify your monsters more in there. But man, I love some of the monsters that are in there.
But it's not Mutant Year Zero engine, is it, Simbarum?
No, it's not. That's the negative for it. That's why. But I do love the stress mechanic in Alien. That to me,
fantastic.
I wish that they would do more stress mechanics like that, where it both helps and hinders you at the same time, or it has the potential of really hindering you. And that's,
does it sort of give you more energy in combat, but allows you to concentrate less? I would imagine.
So what happens is you have two sets of dice. You have the regular dice, and then you have your stress dice. Your stress dice give you more chances to succeed, but if you roll a failure in any one of them, then you immediately go into a I won't call it a panic state, but there are different stress levels in there that can go from you basically are frozen to complete catatonia to panic, and then it starts affecting other people. Some cases it can make you go berserk where you want to fight. There's a lot of different aspects there, which is what I like about it. And the character, well, the players aren't sure what will happen to their character depending on how much stress dice they are. So you always wanted to. So getting a few extra stress dice may actually really help you. But if you fail one, then you fail the entire roll. And so it makes, when I say fail, I mean you roll a 1. So you have 1s and 6s, basically how the Mutant Year Zero system works. A 1 is a failure and a 6 is a success. And so if you roll the 1, you're going to have the negative impact. And it's only the stress dice where it negatively impacts you. And you're just like, okay, I have 6 extra stress dice, which means I can theoretically get 12 successes if you have enough, for your attributes and everything else. But you can really up it. And then you go, yeah, but with that many, if I fail, it can go wrong very, very quickly. I think it's a great. I think it's great for really mimicking the Alien, the movie Alien, just because of that. And you can get rid of your stress over time, but it takes a few different things. And then there are a couple cases where certain, I won't call them like classes, but they're careers where you can ignore it once, per game session or something like that. So that can make a big difference. I see that from Hilt, but it's sort of, but you have to realize that it's the same thing with there's a metagame aspect to creating stress among players. And then I want to mention, like Conan, the more Doom dice you get, the more the players feel that stress. The same thing with clocks. If you do clocks and the clock starts filling up, the players start feeling that stress. The players feel the stress, not the characters as much, but the players will start feeling that stress of success or failure it can have a much bigger impact.
We were just discussing what we thought you were building there, Bear. I thought it was a pool cue. I thought it was initially a pool cue you were putting together, and I saw the head of the broom. And I saw you were polishing.
I have room in here for my books. How am I going to fit a pool table, man? It's just an Amazon order: cat food and cleaning supplies.
Oh joy! Lionel's mentioned Delta Green. I've not played Delta Green, so I don't know what the breaking points is. I mean, sanity is going to obviously work a lot like Call of Cthulhu does, but I'm guessing breaking point could be like a stress system in there as well. But I don't know how that mechanic works. I've not played Delta Green.
Free League's Mutant Zero system could do a fantastic Cthulhu game.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm going to mention this much for anyone that likes Delta Green. They have a deal for the next 5 hours, a bundle of holding. So
for which?
Bundle of holding. They have the Delta Green Mega. So the core books, Conspiracy, Labyrinth, Impossible Landscapes, and more. So It's there if you guys are interested in Delta Green. It's $8 for the basic, and then how much is it for the other aspect to it? Anyway, but that gives you the option if you're interested in it.
I generally don't go for much of the modern stuff, but I have to admit I have been enjoying running a modern scenario for Call of Cthulhu, and that's the Ladybug one I'm running at the moment, because it's something different. It's a one shot. It's a 3-session one shot, but it's a one shot. Yeah, hopefully the big finale is going to happen next Monday.
Which game?
It's Call of Cthulhu.
Oh, it's in Cthulhu proper. Are you using the new version 7e, or are you using an older version?
Yes.
7e is the greatest evolution of the basic role-playing system I've seen to date, and it really pissed me off that in their new version of the big core rulebook for basic role-playing, they didn't incorporate any of the 7e stuff.
Oh, wow.
They just made the same damn game again. It's because there's basically a breakdown that's happening. I hung out for a while on the BRP forums, and there's a breakdown between the Call of Cthulhu 7 players who are going, this is the best version ever, and the Grognard RuneQuest players who are going, I don't like it, it's garbage. And, well, they're keeping them separate as a result, and it's a shame because it's what, as far as I'm concerned, they should be looking at how well Mithras did from Design Imperative. They should be looking at how well Classic Fantasy did for Mithras and see that there is a market for their system in fantasy. Right? Like beyond RuneQuest. There are people out there who are starving for something other than bloody D&D for their fantasy games. And here you've got this venerable old machine that could do it with some great modern advancements. No, it's too modern. Don't like that. Grognard's bad. Progress bad.
Kabuki, I really like Cthulhu by Gaslight. I'm waiting for their release. A 7th edition version of it, and I will buy that immediately.
7th edition version of Gaslight?
Yeah. Hasn't been done yet, has it?
I don't think so. I think they did Cthulhu Invictus. Did they do that? Or no, is it Medieval Dark Ages?
They've done bits, some bits and bobs for 7th edition, but I do wish they do Gaslight for it, because I think the Gaslight setting is perfect. Jack the Ripper London.
I thought that, I thought that they were supposed to be coming out with that, and it seems like they're coming out with so many books, but I kind of agree with Bears. If it's really an issue, then why don't you just put these as optional rules in the in like little blue boxes like they used to in the games, and say, oh, if you want a game that represents more of this, and then just put a little blue box, add this optional rule, or add this optional rule. And that way you can get both of them in there without trying to give the I don't like this, I don't like that. It's like, look, not everything.
Well, it's an optional rule. Don't use it. End of story.
Yeah,
exactly.
But they didn't.
But I've
RW, the Ladybug scenario. I haven't run it on the channel yet. I'm doing it for my face-to-face group at the moment, so it's an in-person round the table game. And I'm thoroughly enjoying running a game around the table again. It's the first time I've done it in a long time. So I say a long time, a couple of years. But I may well run it on the channel at some point. It's quite a beefy scenario. So we need to set aside a number of weeks to run it, because obviously running on Discord takes running around a table. But it's good. It's good.
I'm going to say something, since Gingerbeard was saying how he's pushing all of your Call of Cthulhu games. Whenever John runs Call of Cthulhu, it's his voice that makes it really terrifying for the monsters.
English accent, apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently
it's terrifying to Americans.
It is the accent.
King George is coming to get me. That's how they react. It's in their DNA now. And to counter Elf, 5e, everything optional gets used as core in 5e, and people have to be reminded certain things like multi-classing and feats are actually optional.
Wait. That's only for the player's handbook. All of the optional rules in the Dungeon Master's Guide are completely ignored. They go, well, I think I should add this rule. Like, there's a rule for that. Where? It's like page 200. Oh.
That's different because they choose to break their books up into multiple places, right? So that's a bit of a difference. But an all-in-one game like basic role-playing or Call of Cthulhu or what have you, I think the optional rules would get would be there for the people who want them, and I think people would use them. I'm not that jaded as to think no. I think they would use stuff like that.
Well, I think sometimes that it's nice to have the box and you can add it or not. I mean, the old 2E D&D used to have the little blue boxes that would talk about if you want an optional role, here's an option. And I miss that in a lot of games. Nowadays, more and more games are kind of, like you said with 5e, we can sell more books if I put in more feats and more classes. And you're going, but it doesn't make the game any better. In fact, it sometimes makes it worse. And I think that's part of the problem that you get is the bloat.
Steering back a little bit back towards monsters, and one of our earlier points, and I'm going to use Omanal here as an example, because this is something you flagged up as being one of your favorite bits of a Call of Cthulhu session that I've run for you. A certain twist on what you expected of a fairly generic and fairly common monster. Do you remember the start of Reign of Terror?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
The bit that you've mentioned a few times when you approached those helpers.
Oh yes, yeah.
That were just zombies. But if you'd just like to tell everybody on the stream, what was it about them that made them memorable, that made them particularly horrific?
Well, for me, what really made them horrific, and again, this comes down to is the fact that their heads were sewn on backwards, and I mean, it is kind of that. Again, I guess that's kind of that body horror, but it also comes that uncanny valley where it's close enough. It's the same reason, like whenever you talk about anything is, and we've all seen in movies where your human doesn't move in human ways. And you just like that it creeps you out from that aspect. And I think that works well in games as well. It's not, just like Bear talks about with it being creepy, is it goes over that primal part of this isn't natural. And when that comes into it, especially if you're playing a quote fairly realistic game, like more like Call of Cthulhu, which we all have to laugh at. But you know what? But just run with it where you're like, I'm a normal person that's been put in an extraordinary circumstances fighting extraordinary things. That to me is what makes the horror aspect. And it's very hard in a level-based game because when you get high enough level, at that point you're fighting demons and you're just like, you're kind of the superhero aspect, and you don't feel that terror and that fear as when you're at that low level and you're going, all right, we're facing down 4 lizard men. We might be able to take them.
That particular scene in that adventure, there were a number of hooded figures who arrived at the Paris catacombs to help unload carts with bodies in of recently guillotined victims to take the body. And they started unloading the carts, and they sort of filed down into the catacombs carrying whatever they're carrying in an orderly fashion, but they were saying nothing, and they were all just moving together, and they all come back upstairs in a line and start loading and pull from behind, pulls down the hood to find the features of the zombie staring back at him because the head has been sewn on backwards.
And it was meant to be as a pure joke. That's what got me, is it was meant to be as a pure joke.
It's a nice moment, isn't it? It's a nice moment.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what it reminds me of, and maybe this is where they pulled it from, is anyone that's seen the movie Black Hole?
The Black Hole. It's the Black Hole. I'm sitting here the whole time going, it's the Black Hole.
Yeah, exactly.
A Disney film, no less.
Yeah.
John hasn't seen that. It's sci-fi.
Yeah, exactly. But no,
actually, one of the things it reminded me of was the remade in Perdido Street Station, which is this weird fantasy novel, and they're facing these creatures that you go and they'll mesmerize you if you look at them, unless you look at them through a mirror. So the authorities have like these people remade. They modify the body so the head is on backwards, and they carry helmets that have mirrors built in so they can, their body faces the monster and they can shoot easily, but they don't need to turn their head away. It's very weird and creepy.
Yes, yes. Anyway, it was a good moment in that adventure. It was a fairly linear adventure, not particularly exciting in my opinion. But the second part I thought was much better, but much better.
Well, and was that? And I can't remember if that was in the second part or the first part. I guess that was the second part because you lost our pistols.
I ran a chill game when I was in college for using the Mayfair edition, not the Pacesetter, the second edition, basically back when I was in college. And it was one of the few times I only ever had 2 players, and we played every night. It was insane. And we'd play like till 2, 3 in the morning. But they were just paranormal investigators from a university. That one was a professor and the other was his buddy who was ex-military, a veteran, what have you, who drove the car and, was there as muscle. And the first adventure that took 3-4 sessions to do was just them doing an investigation of an old haunted house in New England that one of the students had inherited from her grandmother, and then finding out there's a ghost and dealing with the ghost and this whole thing. And then literally parts of it I stole from a real Ghostbusters cartoon, for God's sake. And it was absolutely fun and terrifying. And just by every time they would mention the name of what they thought was the ghost, Ivan, I would just go, Ivan. And they'd freak, man. Like to the point where at one point, one of the players, Corey, just was like, stop fucking doing that. And he was yelling at me at the table,
I'll tell you what is frightening.
You don't need horror to be boo. You don't need horror to be bleh. It can just be that.
I'll tell you what is frightening. Iman suddenly appearing back on his camera, silhouetted by that black background.
That was the jump scare of the night right there.
It was indeed.
That's the real horror.
Well, Gingerbeard, the episode that I stole a lot from was the thing in Mrs. Faversham's attic, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
If you remember,
cartoons are a great source of ideas for
Courage the Cowardly Dog was one of the most fucking freaky shows ever.
Yeah.
Oh, what was it? Adventure Time was another one.
Adventure Time is weird, man.
Yeah.
The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, not really horror, but Grim Reaper themed.
Well, I mean, whenever I want to do pulp, cartoons are fantastic for that aspect. But yeah, I think sometimes, and this is what really gets you with the Alien one, is the monsters are so deadly, and you have so little health, and there's no way to really increase it. And so it's all of a sudden you get hit. Well, you might be just wounded, or you might suddenly have your brain splattered out the back of your head. So there's always that tension whenever you roll, like, oh, please let me get an 11, not a 65.
High five, DK. Man, you going to
Cheers,
the pub
Daniel.
this weekend?
Cheers,
there,
Daniel.
John?
I'm running games this weekend.
You should head down to the Winchester and just have a plan until this all blows over instead.
What about the slaughtered lamb?
Don't mention the pentagram. That's all I'm going to say.
One movie I know you talk about movies, but there's a little TV series I really enjoyed, which is called Gogol, which is a Russian set in the 1700s.
I knew you were Russian propaganda.
That's right. Here, go watch the 1700 show, which has he has psychometry. Whenever he touches something, he gets a flashback of what's going on. But it deals with a black rider killing off village girls and demons and witches and ghosts, and it's. So I thought it was pretty cool.
For me, there's a great old show was shot in Canada, but probably you guys saw it in the States, Friday the 13th, the series.
Oh, I remember that one.
Which is a great campaign in of itself. The idea that you're paranormal investigators having to go out and track down these cursed or haunted items and get them back in the safety of the vault, right?
Yeah.
So every episode, every adventure can be an episode of the week, a new item, what have you.
Well, I like the one where they had to fight the demon, where they had the demon hunters. They were being chased by the demon, and then you find out that the girl is the one that's summoning it. But yeah,
horror always has to be the flip. You need the flip in horror. There's got to be the moment where you go, crap.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's sometimes I think what makes horror is both having something familiar and unfamiliar. That it's familiar enough with it being horrific enough that it's like, oh, that's why I think The Thing did such a good job, was because you had the paranoia and you had the supernatural monster, and it keeps flipping back and forth, and you're like, oh God, which is which all comes down to it. Warehouse 13 was okay. I mean, and I liked the X-Files as long as it didn't deal with aliens. Like the devil worshipping PPA, I enjoyed.
Yeah.
So you say the thing, and every time someone mentions the thing, the only thought I have in my head is, I know you gentlemen have been through a lot. When you find the time, I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking couch. Always that fucking moment. It's such
Lionel's
a good
giving
moment.
Lionel's giving love for Call of Cthulhu is The Haunting, but that there is the best Call of Cthulhu adventure I've ever run. That one.
What's this one? What's it called?
Forget Me Not.
And
I
you
remember
always
that.
mention this one. Okay, can you do me a favor? As someone who doesn't read Mythos, who doesn't play Mythos, please explain this adventure to me.
How do I want to put this? You wake up in a hospital.
No, not you. You be quiet. I want
I
John
was
to
a
do his dulcet British accent and make me want to go to bed. Stop your nonsense.
Grumpy old slan and there were players in the
Omen
hall
Owl
with
played it,
ginger beer.
but I want to run it again for people on my channel at some point. So I don't want to explain everything.
Jesus H. Murphy. All right, fine, whatever.
Yeah. Well,
I'll give you the
I'd
start.
be down for that.
I'll give you the start. You wake up in a van that is in a ditch. That's clearly been involved in an accident. Your body hurts. You're a bit battered and bruised. There's a storm raging outside. You don't know how you got there. You don't know when you got there. You don't know why you're there. You don't know who you are. And that's how it starts.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I get it.
I see where House of Hell got the inspiration from.
And it all goes from the slowly piece together who you are, what you were doing, why you were there, and what's happened, and is absolutely, it's horrifying, it's panic inducing, it's disgusting, it's great. It's really good. So
I'll have to play it. I guess when you run it, I'll see.
In any other scenario, those adjectives would be anything except good.
Oh, there's nothing good. We had a lot of fun trying to figure out who we were, why we were there, where we had to go to, who to talk to, who we talked to before. You know, it's kind of it's like Jason Bourne, except that we're just real schmucks.
I mean, have you not ever heard my technique for surviving a Call of Cthulhu campaign?
I don't think so. What
Here's
is it?
how it works.
Not
My
playing?
character is deaf, blind, has no tongue, and has neuropathy in his fingers, so he can't really feel anything. Therefore, I can never go insane by reading, seeing, touching, or tasting anything, or hearing anything.
In Forget Me Not, if that's your approach, your character's dead.
You know, I'm sure it is, but I'm just saying in a regular Call of Cthulhu campaign, eat nothing, see nothing, hear nothing, read nothing.
So he can't hear, see, he can't speak. Can he smell?
Oh, shit.
I was thinking that there's one sense missing here.
That's it. The smell is going to get
They
you.
get me with the smell out of space. The what? No.
Well, no. What
What's it smell like?
He
It's
smells,
indescribable. What?
No. He smells baby powder and
Rotting
diarrhea.
Calamari.
And diarrhea. That was because that's the creepy monster.
Oh yeah, that creepy ass monster.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna.
I mean, I don't know what this thing looks like, sounds like, or anything, but it fucking smells disgusting.
How did it smell? Indescribable. What? That's always been my problem with Call of Cthulhu at the end of the day, or with Lovecraftian horror. What does it look like? Indescribable. What does it sound like? Indescribable. What does it smell like? Indescribable. Well, what the fuck is it then?
It's undescribed. And on that note,
it's-
I'm gonna
it's
have
just the
to drop
man.
out, guys.
right.
Thanks a lot.
Man, take care, man.
You too.
Cheers, man.
Will you be at Draconis in 10 days?
Probably not, because after this move, I am dirt fuck broke. So
It's a free event. You can show up.
Yeah, no.
for
I
free.
have to get there. I have to feed myself. I got to do all these other things. That
Fair
involve
enough.
money.
Fair enough.
So,
All right.
so I'm gonna bring. Oh,
Take
go ahead.
care.
Sorry. Yeah, take care.
Take care, man.
See ya.
I'm going to mention my favorite description, which is, you say, indescribable. Is, my favorite line from all of Lovecraft's was, and it was eating his head like a candy cane.
What the fuck?
How? Because some people lick the candy cane, some people suck the candy cane, and some people crunch the candy cane. So which one was it?
Yeah, but the great thing
Do it
is
all
that's
three.
for you
All
to
three.
decide. That's for you to decide.
All three, one with each mouth.
No. Listen, I don't play games for me to decide shit other than what my character does. I'm not into this gaming thing where it's like, well, together with the DM, you're going to build the... Fuck off. DM, do your job. I'll do mine as a player. Let's have fun.
Well, but see, sometimes you just have to describe things, and that's all. You just describe them ambiguous enough that the players all come up with their own ideas.
Oh,
And
no,
then
the horror in your mind is always better than the horror
Oh,
you
yeah.
see.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Imagine
And
the worst
in my
deal ever.
experience from
Worse
that-
than Thanks, Chris.
In my experience from that, playing Theatre of the Mind over Discord is a better way of playing a horror game than face-to-face at the table a lot of the time.
I don't know with Saxius getting up out of the table and just trying to stare at the players when he does his Ravenloft. That's pretty cool.
I mean, I've done that. I've done that with Call of Cthulhu. I mean, we were talking about. I think Elfbait said something about doing things that could get you in on certain lists. Yeah, I mean, I've got up in the middle of a Call of Cthulhu game and stared a player in the eyes as I was slowly describing what the villain wanted to do to his character, and it wasn't pleasant, and it wasn't for children's ears. And I was very proud that he sent me a message the next morning to say that he was still disturbed by the whole experience.
It's probably the fact that you were looking him in the eyes that sealed it.
Oh yes, and I wasn't blinking, and I had the yes, the voice was yes, you look delicious.
Yes, they call it Cthulhu reading voice.
It's been 200 years since I have tasted or felt warm flesh. I've had to make do with cold bodies for all of that time, and your flesh looks particularly warm. And I went on for about 2 or 3 minutes doing that. And he was just like, John, stop.
Well. See,
I think I'd be more afraid you're going to molest me.
It's John sounds like
right.
John sounds like he's doing an imitation of Peter Lorre as he's doing that.
But you must understand, is that in the back there is an unspeakable eldritch horror. There you go. Yeah, exactly.
With his English accent, the two work so well together.
Do it as James
Daniel.
Mason. That'd be even funnier. James, I don't know why you're here, but
oh, you funny fucker, Daniel.
Daniel, I was stood up and my friend was sat down. There you go.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm not very
Lionel
tall.
Hutz.
Okay.
Smoking Monkey. I love that name. Yes, it is easy to forget that one first edition AD&D Dragon is terrifying. I remember an article in Dragon magazine where they explained to you in epic detail, round by round, how to take out a 15th level party with an adult dragon, the spell casting. It was brilliant. Invisibility to check them approaching, then picking up the spellcaster and dropping them from a great height so they die and all this kind of stuff. It was really good.
Oh, I loved that, but what I loved was the one where, speaking of course, the problem is it's not so much horror. Though all my players ran for my dragons, even when they were 40th level, was I started using the what was the article telling you all the different types of attacks the dragon could use, like a stomp and the wings and stuff like that. And I'm like, all right, he starts beating his wings. You're taking a certain amount of damage. Guess what? While you take damage, you can't cast spells. And it's like, oh, that sucks. Yeah, it's like, well, you better get. Yeah, I mean. And so they would run. They would just run. And then
you drop that wizard from a great height, and then he casts Featherfall. Awesome. He's now slowly falling target for the dragon to come and cut to pieces.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's horror, but I know something that it's certainly in my OSE game that has been making my players somewhat fearful about how they approach the current level of the dungeon they're in, and that's a very simple 1+1 hit die creature called the Dark Creeper. That because it can extinguish all the party's light sources like that.
That's a very racially insensitive thing you just said, Johnny. Dark creeper? Is that British slang for something, sir? No, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, but I think you can get away with combining monsters. Like imagine rot grubs, but aren't rot grubs. They're undead grubs that burrow into you and then take over your body and turn you into a walking dead. That they
see, that's a cool one.
That's it. I like that. Yeah. I'm making a note of that one.
And all you have to do is pin the other player down with a grapple and then vomit undead grubs into their face. You know, I mean.
Oh, fuck off!
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Well,
no.
I think the other part is, and I know Bear talk.
Do you know what's actually so weird? No, go on. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I was going to say is, and Bear knows this because he's been hunting. People forget just how scary animals are when they start panicking and coming towards you. Because my ex had a horse, and I was like, "Oh, it's a sweet little horse," and everything else. That thing reared up on 2 legs, and all of a sudden it went from like 5 feet tall to 10 feet tall, and it's hundreds of pounds larger than I am with flailing legs. And I'm like, holy crap, that's going to be a bad situation. And most players are like, oh, it's just a horse. Like, it's just a horse until you actually have to face off against it.
So in Vancouver, there's this massive park in the city called Stanley Park. And Stanley Park is big Douglas fir trees. It's an amazing place to go visit. Me and some friends went there one night, and one of my friends was eating Doritos, and we could see 4 or 5 raccoons coming towards us. So he decided it'd be really funny to start throwing Doritos to the raccoons. And we were all laughing as the raccoons were scrambling for the Doritos. It was all hilarious. And then one of our buddies looked to the left and said, "Oh, Jesus Christ." And we all looked, and there were 20 more raccoons flanking us. We're all bouncers. We're all 6 foot or taller, and we're acting like girls trying to get in the car as fast as humanly possible to flee these little raccoons, you know?
Well, you know,
yeah. I was playing golf once, and I sent the ball off off to the left, and it landed right on the edge of a lake in these reed beds, and I knew whereabouts it would be. I knew it hadn't gone into the water because I knew how the bank there went. So I went trudging through the reed beds, and as I was trudging through, I heard this.
Squirrel.
No, it was a goose.
Jesus!
Shit!
For your fucking life.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to bring
it was a
this
goose
one
on
up.
its nest. I shot and ran. That ball was staying there.
So I was over at a girl. You know, I was seeing a girlfriend in the middle of the night, and didn't have my lights on. You know, outside of her house, and I kept hearing this. Like, what the hell is that? And I turn on the lights, and there are 50 deer out in the dark. But if the players don't know what it is, and they hear this hissing sound, they're like, what the hell? And that's why I mentioned the environment has so much. But the other part is, you want to talk about fear, because I always love watching people from up north, and they come down south, and they don't realize just how big alligators are. Yeah. You know, and, you know, there's some eyes staring at them. And you're just like, and I'll say this much, a 12-foot alligator is a monster. It's like, oh, and people forget about that. It's just how big some of these animals are. You know, if you're unprepared, good luck. So, or what was the other one they have? I saw someone that was a nature photographer, and they're just walking around, and all of a sudden they look up, and there's a puma staring down at them, about ready to pounce. Oh wow. Just even, and especially, you know, talking about vampires where they can control the if you can get a monster or a druid or something, if you get an evil druid, non-D&D of course, if you can get an evil druid that can control the animals, and they start making the characters' lives hell, like you said with the raccoons and, you know, other monsters and the flying bats, and then, you know, birds. Anyone that's watched the movie The Birds, you know, just making things familiar, but then making everything act in a creepy manner. Oh yeah.
I had in one of my
Rats.
D&D games years ago, I had an anti-druid basically that controlled rot and death and things like that. So kind of like a necromantic druid to a certain extent, and man, tormented the players with plague of flies and raising up dead animals' bones from the ground and assembling them into this like weird monster that could attack them. And you can have so much fun with that stuff.
Oh yeah. Well,
And we come full circle to the fact that humans are probably the scariest monster you could use.
Well, so I don't know if any of you have played The Last of Us, but that's basically the premise of The Last of Us. The zombies, while scary and ugly, are predictable. The humans are not.
I haven't.
In the end, the deadliest of us was the man.
The most dangerous game, except now imagine that it's a vampire.
Just wait for the sun to come up.
I mean,
But that's what I mean. Vampires are still predictable, right?
No, they're not. Not if you play them right. No, the vampire should be a human being. That's even scarier because now it's not just easy to kill.
You play,
but you know certain things about them, right?
You twist the depths of human depravities, and that can be fear-inducing, or at least squick-inducing, when you've got a human in an event that is doing something that is considered to be utterly gross by normal humans.
So, like a gay vampire who sucks blood through somewhere else rather than the normal place.
I am so glad I haven't monetized this stream.
Well, what were some of them where they said that they start draining the bone marrow? That's always a fun one for vampires. So yeah, it's because now they have to chew on you, and I think Shadowrun did a great job with some of those, where they have to start eating your bones and things. And you're like,
sorry, guys.
You're right, Daniel.
Hello.
I gotta X out of the other one.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, everyone pretends that I know what the vampire is. Well, you may not know its motivations. You may not know, which is where I think that Strahd did a great job in the, Ravenloft module. Is it made the vampire more than just the regular, it's just a monster I found again.
Lionel's got a question. We can't hear you properly, Daniel. You probably can't hear me as well.
Yeah.
So my internet's terrible. Lionel, I'm going to say an intelligent monster that is sort of ever present in the domain. And I'm going to bring up, we've just mentioned him, Strahd. He's very hard to play properly without him coming across as utterly dickish.
How would you expect him to come across?
Yeah.
Well, he's got
somewhat
to be
sympathetic.
He's got to be. Yeah, I mean, yes, he's got to come across as a dick eventually, but I mean, he's almost like a welcoming host to start with.
Yeah, okay, he's Bram Stoker's Dracula. I mean, guys, I'm sorry, Strahd is nothing new. He's nothing interesting, and he's nothing original. He's very much a pastiche of every classic vampire written into one. I find Ravenloft, sorry, I'm going to be in the minority on this one, tremendously boring. It got more boring when they sanitized it recently for modern audiences.
But when I6 was released, though, it was a fairly new concept of having a monster stalking the characters.
That's fine. That was 40 years ago. We're here now.
Yeah. That's true.
Okay.
Well,
so Star Trek had cutting edge special effects in the 60s. Now it looks like guys with styrofoam rocks. What are we going to do?
I'm going to bring it up, which is the Yuan-Ti. I think are some of the hardest to bring up.
They're hard because you got to get into their motivation.
Yeah.
Well, not
I think
that they have
games like
intelligence too.
Sorry.
Aboleth.
Go ahead. Yeah,
I think games like Alien Isolation and Outlast have really put up the bar for what it's like to be chased by an enemy. That fear that you feel.
That's true. But the reason I was mentioning Yuan-ti is there are a lot of people that have aversions towards snakes. And the other one I love are driders, but the Yuan-ti are super intelligent, and like Guns Are Cool saying there is also the aboleths, because they are so alien. And I think that's part of what you have to play off on. Is I understand the snake men are really based off of Conan snake men, but the aboleths, here you have a creature that's what, hundreds of millions, or as far as they go back, they're before the dinosaurs. They remember the way the world was. They're hyper intelligent. They have all these weird abilities, the psionic attacks, the getting it so now the players are only stuck to water. I think those are some of the fun ones to play also, especially if the players don't understand what's going on and you have them in the background. And sometimes, we talk. Sexus was talking about it with the monsters having what is it called? If you put stats to them, you can kill them. You can only kill them if you can find them, and having them in that background where something else is controlling them. That's right. I guess a beholder could fall in that, but I never liked beholders. They just don't have that same creepy feeling to me, because I always see them as that little styrofoam ball that I would put pipe cleaners in from the very first edition Dungeons and Dragons. That's the way I always see beholders from now on. It's like, you want to
think the aboleth. I think the aboleth is a good suggestion for a monster that is hard to play because of how do you portray something that is utterly otherworldly. I mean, but they're great monsters. They are fear-inducing monsters because they are so horrid.
For them, it's as a DM trying to get your mind in to play or be an aboleth. The thought process is, you got to think about it.
I'm going to bring something else up because everyone wants.
Hold on, Omanel. Bear's got his hand up.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, Bear.
So my answer to the what monster do you think is the hardest for the GM to play? Little Feather. That guy that they meet, who's one step ahead of everybody, is going to make them trust him, but is ultimately going to fuck them over for his own ends in the end. That's the hardest thing to play, because you have to, 1, get the players to trust him, 2, think ahead of your players, and 3, not telegraph the ass fucking that's coming.
Well, see, and see, that's where I was thinking of when you mentioned that the Changeling in Warhammer Fantasy, because he can change shape and act like other characters. And what he does, and this is what to me sometimes makes players will assign motivations to monsters even when there is none, other than the fact they want to cause chaos. And they're like, they'll find patterns that don't exist just to make sure that and that's the one thing I liked about the Zinch Changeling. He just does it just because. Like one day he'll help you, the next day he won't, but he'll start shape changing. So all of a sudden people are like, oh, you're the greatest, we're giving you all this money. The next day you're like, oh, you did this. You're like, I don't understand what's going on.
Well, that also then goes over into the doppelganger.
Yes. Well,
because
the reason I used to
have to be a different person. If you think about the doppelganger, you're a different person every day or every hour, every 5 minutes. So as a DM, you have to start thinking, okay, I got to be this, how long are you going to play whatever the doppelganger is going to do?
First season of The Witcher.
Players.
Yeah.
Yeah, first season of The Witcher had that great doppelganger character, and he was fantastic.
Yeah.
Watching him desperately need to become new people towards the end and try and sort of, do that. It was really well done. A goblin is a terrifying monster if you do it right. It's all comes down to how you approach it as a DM or a GM and how you interact with the players. That's ultimately what it's going to boil down to.
Correct. Yes.
I think Manfred is lagging in chat because he's replying to comments from about 20 minutes ago. So
what did I say 20 minutes? It was awesome. I want to know.
I don't know. I mean, yeah.
What did I say that was awesome, Manfred? I want to know. My God, I want to pat myself on the back.
We'll probably finish the stream by the time he's heard that question.
Oh, dang.
Well, this is why you played on
Wow.
2x speed to catch up there, Manfred.
Okay.
That's what I do.
Well, I've got here now horrific big bad evil guys. You know, that ending bad guy. I've already hinted at sort of like the hard to play, the one who's going to stab them in the back. But really good horrific big bad guys at the end. Any sort of suggestions?
I agree with the aboleth because the players aren't knowing it's an aboleth, and then when they suddenly find out, it's nothing like. To be fair, as most places, the problem is that D&D has done so many things out there that players kind of know what to expect. But with the aboleth, if they aren't even familiar with it, it's like, holy crap, that completely blindsides you. And how do you fight it? How do you deal with it? You don't even know what it does.
That and it's called Cthulhu type monster, or being, whatever you want to call it, and you never encounter them. So what do you do? It's like, okay,
But is it really Call of Cthulhu type monster? It has motivations. You can understand what it wants.
yeah.
So it's not really that. I mean, it has the trappings of it, but at the end of the day, you can understand what an aboleth wants. You can't understand what Yog-Sothoth wants. You don't understand what the Yellow King wants. You're the King in Yellow. You know, that's what makes it so horrible.
I'm going to bring this up. This is part of the reason I liked the Alien RPG. Is a lot of the monsters for the Alien sometimes seem to do weird things that just don't make sense. You know, when you roll for the attack, like, it will hit your character and knock him down, and then it just stares at him. And you're like, what does it want to do? You know, and players are trying to, you know, for players that are used to the DM doing everything, by having some of that randomness in there. And as you as the DM, you don't care what the real motivation is. The players are trying to desperately figure out what it's doing.
Whoa. Yeah. I fully disagree with that statement you made about, as a DM, you don't care what its motivation is. You should absolutely care what its motivation is, because that will fuel its choices. It will fuel why it does certain things, as opposed to just being an agent of chaos.
Correct. Although I do have you beat on the hardest, most fearsome monster. It's my first mother-in-law.
That's a CR-18 creature in 5th edition.
Correct.
Well, that's just because it was Grendel's mother, okay?
Oh, snap. Did Angelina Jolie play her?
Although she was good looking, but she's still a mother-in-law.
Mother-in-law.
I would have
done it.
Oh.
So look,
Manfred's definitely half hour behind it. Manfred!
Manfred, press the fast forward button until it doesn't fast forward anymore.
Well, he needs to listen to 2x speed. It's okay. He's doing something.
Bear's frozen.
Didn't mean to get off. I did not mean to get us off topic, but we're talking about
the only one I can think might be a bit of a basic answer is the Tyrant from Resident Evil.
You know what? I've never played these games. A lot of them, because I don't.
Yeah, see, I don't know that.
You know, some of them.
Which one?
That's the thing about Iman. You're new to RPGs, completely new to RPGs, so your inspiration is completely different to ours. You're not an old jaded RPG player like us.
I'm the new school, like JRPG sort of player. Yeah.
Well, see, you have to realize when we came up, we had played the tabletop first, and then we were playing the role-playing games for the from the computer as a way to fix our habit. You know,
okay.
So a lot of the games that I played were text-based, like Zork and stuff like that at the very beginning.
Oh, I played Zork. Zork is cool as fuck.
So
you were eaten by a Gru.
Well, but so like the 90s, I didn't play any video games for the most part, or I played a few, but some of these games you talk about, like I said, I like Alien Isolation. I mean, there is a little bit of motivation, but I mean, for the attacks in most D&D games, it's kind of a, well, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. But whenever you play some of the Forbidden Land stuff, or you know the Mutant Year Zero, you roll the attack, and so it has different attacks depending on what you roll. But the dungeon master isn't the one deciding the attack. It's the roll that's deciding. And so now the players are trying to figure out what their motivation is. And I think part of, what the fear comes down to is also not understanding your opponent. This is why, whether it's bugs or alien, you can't reason with it. It doesn't seem to have a true motivation except sometimes hatred. It's one of these things like, well, why does it do this sometimes, but not this other times? And players will always try finding the players will try making sense of things, even if it doesn't make sense, as long as it feels, when I say believable is, if the monster isn't doing magical teleports, then it feels real enough, like they're being stalked. Why is it doing this? Why doesn't it back off when we hurt it? Things that normal animals would run away from. It's like, oh, okay, I'm being attacked by wolves. Well, technically, if I bring out a torch, they'll back off, but this thing won't. And you're like, well, what is it doing? Why isn't it backing off when I hurt it? And that's why I love spiders, because people have real fear of spiders and centipedes. Those are two.
Yeah, me included.
Like snakes. Who was it that said snakes?
Oh, I did with the auntie.
Yeah, exactly. You bring out that, and that I know where you're coming from, and it makes sense, because like when I play with my family, if I say spiders or snakes, even rats, there's a different. Say, oh, you see an orc, they're like, all right, whatever, pull out my sword. We say spider, snake, or rat, there's a reaction.
I'm going to bring up one other one, leeches.
Yeah, oh God. Gah.
See, there's the instinctual reaction. Yeah. Another thing's very common.
Yeah. And I have untold amount of firearms, obviously, and I've been through a lot of shit. But leeches, yeah, no. I'm out of there.
I got one.
I will be gone.
I got one. Giant Lone Star tick.
Speaking of which, my last leech died. I'll have to buy some more.
So Lone Star ticks are the only ticks that have eyes, and they're the only ticks that actively hunt for prey, as opposed to waiting for you to brush against them and then latching on.
Oh my Lord.
So imagine two things. One, it needs to shove its head into you to feed. So imagine this thing's about the size of, like, I don't know, a Cocker Spaniel. Right?
Wow, yeah.
Not that big. Yeah. But it comes at you aggressively, and maybe there's 10 of them. And then when they hit you, they're looking for unarmored or clothy parts where they can jab their heads into your body. And then just start, and they latch on, and then just start sucking the blood out of you. 4 or 5 of those will reduce a character to 0 hit points.
Well, see, I like the old Sturgis.
Brutal.
The Sturgis did a good job for that. What was the other one? The creeper vines that would suck the blood out of you. From what was
Sturgis are too easy to kill.
Well, here's the other one I love is when talking about creepy, those coconut crabs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, especially if you can hear the clacking and stuff as they're moving along. But knowing that they can eat you, it's, and then of course you make the giant versions don't seem quite as scary, but boy, you get a swarm of them. And I really wish D&D would do more swarms sometimes, but you get the swarm where they're crawling up, and you're just like, ah.
Yeah. If you're a good player and the problem with that is you need to have a good player to imagine that. If not, they're like, okay, I'm taking damage. But a good player would be like, oh my God, I'm getting covered, eaten alive. But if they don't have an imagination, they're just going to be like, okay, I'm taking damage, whatever.
It's easier to do that, I think, when you've got a creature that you are familiar with from the real world.
Correct, yes.
Like leeches, like swarms of insects, swarms of bees or wasps.
Yeah. I was like,
locusts.
Oh yeah, I'm going to mention this one because they're great. Is the Brendan Fraser's Mummy series with the scarab beetles?
Oh yeah,
Kabuki Kid's just mentioned that in chat.
perfect.
Kabuki
Yeah,
Kid has just mentioned that in
exactly.
chat.
Yep.
Exactly. I mean, there are good monsters out there, but that's exactly the point is, to me, I love having an intelligent monster that they're fighting that isn't human. Which is why I like the mummies and the vampires and the the liches, the ghost, because they're humanoid without being fully human. There's that, and so that's what always comes into it. And you can play them as fun. You can, as a DM, you can just go off, and, just like you were doing with what was that count that we met in Reign of Terror?
Oh yes, yeah.
You have all the fun to do with that. Sometimes, and I know Bear's like, well, everyone's done the the Bram Stoker's Dracula. Yes, but it's so much fun for the DM to do that into the players. It's here. Let me play the evil villain. Let me have my time and stop trying to shoot my villains before they've had their soliloquy.
Yeah.
I was playing a D&D campaign one time where the players had been charged with the task for screwing up big time by the Council of Gods to rid the world of slavery. That was their job now. And they got really good at raiding slave caravans and taking out the slavers and liberating the people. And they gathered more and more and more slaves to their cause that became free men and free women who were willing to fight against the slavers. And then one time they saw this massive caravan and they were really excited and they ambushed it in the middle of the night. And then while the paladin was up front dealing with shit, they got to the big nice carriage in the back and opened it up and found 2 coffins. And out of one of the coffins came a female vampire, who very quietly explained to them that they had best leave in case her mate wakes up because he will destroy all of them. While they're having this conversation, the thief and the fighter are running to the front to do whatever they can to stall the paladin in the front because they know the minute he sees vampires and evil, he's going to attack. Now, where's the room for horror in there?
That's a conundrum.
Yes.
You're like, do we stop the caravan? Do we try and kill everybody, or do we run away?
But yeah, I
That
like
is quite
those
the pickle.
moral choices in there.
Yep. Oh, there's a lot. You're like, what do you do now?
What's this, John? Is this a family portrait? What is this?
This is the bad guy from This is the bad guy that Omen Al was talking about from Reign of Terror.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, which we lucked out on, to be fair.
What I want to know is, did the party get into a fight amongst themselves?
They're fighting him? No.
No,
No.
I think about it though. The paladin is going to want to go after the vampires. I know I'm getting off topic, sorry, but the paladin would want to go go to the vampires, whereas everybody else just wants to get the hell out of town.
Oh, no, they just cast sleep on the paladin and just dragged him away.
Oh, he was a low enough level?
They were all like 4th level at the time.
Oh, okay.
What did you say? They cast sleep on him?
Yeah. They just put the paladin to sleep because he's like, what? Oh, I'm going to face the evil. And they're like, no. This evil will destroy us.
I'd be like, dude, I'm gone.
Wait a minute. Was his name B.A. Baracus?
I pity the fool.
I'm not sure if John's familiar, but that was always the thing of whenever they wanted him to fly, they'd drag him or something.
The A-Team, John. You ever watch the A-Team?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. So you
Who
get
hasn't?
That
What
was
is this picture disturbing, John? What the hell is this picture? Stop it. It's creeping me out.
That was on before you came, actually, and then for some reason I think it went off. Maybe when he switched to Google Chrome.
he blew
Get
it
back
up.
on topic. What topic would you like us to be on? The horror.
Well,
of
I'm just
wallpaper?
going to say you've talked about infighting. Any sort of creature that can cause the characters to turn on each other is quite horrifying.
Okay,
Because
So
it takes away party cohesion.
What about mind flayers?
like a leprechaun.
They were super scary, but they've been overdone so much. I kind of burned out on them. I'll tell you this much: is I kind of like, not that I've ever met one, though. I can't even remember what it does, but the gibbering mouther.
Yeah.
That is just creepy as hell. And
Yep.
you know, what does it do? Confusion and a few other things.
I used a Grell.
I love Grells.
That
I
had
love the look.
sentience. that
Yeah.
had sentience
A
and
what?
become
Pretty
a
cool.
Grell that had gained sentience and had become a spellcaster,
Yep.
and had used illusions to disguise himself as an evil mage until the very final battle when they realized he was a fucking Grell. And boy,
I don't know what that is.
It's the brain
It's a
with the tentacles and the bird's beak.
Correct.
Yes.
Got it.
If you
5-year-old girls
play-
are scary.
The
Yes,
funny
they are.
thing is, if you play any of these, one of them could wipe out a whole party. If you don't play them properly, they're meatloaf. Know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's.
They would do
it
anything
depends.
for love, but they won't do that. What?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I thought
Two
they were
out of
eating at the last.
2 out of 3 ain't bad,
Wah, wah.
but I don't care what it is. If you play anything properly, even one of them can kill a whole group. It's how nice do you want to be to your party?
Someone's dog going sick.
I'm going to mention this was for a low-level monster. The carrion crawler is pretty terrifying.
Oh yeah. Oh, we did that. What 2 months ago, John? We let the carrion crawlers and whatever else fight amongst themselves, and then
It was Gingerbeard. That was Gingerbeard's game.
Yeah.
That was in Gingerbeard's game. Yeah.
But no, carrion crawlers are scary.
With carrion crawlers, along with if you'd allow them to coexist, carrion crawlers with rust monsters.
Oh my god, dude, you are horrid. That is just rude. You destroyed a whole party right there.
That's, what do you do?
Run. Yeah, no, that's a good combo. Because you just right there destroyed a party.
I still want to use my zombifying rot grubs. That sounds way more fun.
No, I think you're zombifying.
I like
those.
those.
They're
That sound
awesome.
good. And I can see them being a Saxius monster in the future.
Yeah.
You know what's truly terrifying to players at low levels? Green slime.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
How do you get green slime off of someone? How?
You have to burn it.
You got to
burn
burn it.
Oh, and what kind of saving throws do you need to make when you're lighting your party on fire?
Well, here's the worst part: is it does an additional 1 to 4 points of damage, and at first level, that's kind of a death sentence for a lot of the characters.
And
I did that.
Yellow mold and black slime and gelatinous cube. All those types of
party.
all these.
They fought green slime. The elf maid, the warrior got it on her arm. They tried to burn it off. They did damage to her, and then finally one of the guys was like, "Fuck it, I cut her arm off." So they just amputated her arm while the cleric put a wounds on her.
They wrecked her.
Oh yeah, they
wrecked her.
She became a one-armed elf warrior. Her bow was shit
exactly. Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's cool to me, but it's funny, all these things. With low levels, just about everything can be scary, which is why you talk your way out of a lot of stuff.
Try talking to green slime and gelatinous cubes. See how that works out for you.
No. I said a lot of stuff. I didn't mean everything.
Don't worry. I speak gelatinous. Exactly.
I want to be a myconoid.
That's cool. I like myconids are just cool, but they're not a horror monster in any stretch of the imagination, but they're great fun.
The mushroom people, right?
Yes.
Absolutely horrific if done right.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely, especially if they serve whatever her name is,
Zugatomoy or whatever her name is. Yeah.
Inhale my spores.
Exactly.
Well, the worst part
that's that game Iman was talking about, Last of Us, isn't it? Spore creatures.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So it's based on the real world fungus cordyceps, which infects ants.
They take out of their head there. Yeah.
They just turn into these horrible mushroom fucking creatures, and
Vampiric
as they progress, they get progressively more and more disgusting.
Well, the worst part is with the myconoids, you could actually make them friendly and they don't realize they're releasing these spores as the players start getting infected.
And then they get you.
Are they
stung.
friendly, or are the spores just making them feel like they have the effects of a charm spell on them?
Well, that's well, it could, but I'm saying, but if you even make them friendly, then the players don't feel it's like, well, oh, of course we'll help you out. Here you go, and they don't realize that they're being infected by all the spores around them, and then suddenly they, when they go off, they're like, why do I have these headaches? What's going on with me? Why is my body getting this?
Where did this cough come from that
Well,
I'm specifically having?
If we're talking about The Last of Us, it is sort of more what you would say is the charm sort of thing. You just don't know why, but you want to be around people for some reason. It's just shit like that, you know.
But
and then until you turn, you're not.
But again, that comes to that body horror. You're starting to change. You might not even realize why you're changing.
Paladin, yeah. I don't mean to alarm you, but I just took a shit and there were 4 dancing mushrooms in it.
Oh my god!
I was just thinking, is it just me, or if I acquired a taste of reindeer urine?
What? Fucking hell! Not those kind of mushrooms. Not those kind of mushrooms.
Oh well, you've heard of with the mescal or whatever they.
Amanita muscaria, yeah.
Yeah, where they eat the where they
the red and white spotted mushrooms that you just imagine when you think of a mushroom.
Yeah, and so people to get high will drink reindeer urine for that.
What? Really?
Yeah. So the reindeer eat these mushrooms, and then these like indigenous people will like follow the reindeer around until they have a piss, and then they'll drink their piss.
All right. Okay.
I've seen an elk.
It's a real thing.
They're big and scary. And how do you get the pee? I don't want to. Never mind. Never mind. I didn't ask any questions.
Okay. Well, this is before people realized you could just eat the mushrooms yourself.
Okay.
Really? So their first go-to was drink the caribou piss.
Well, because they weren't sure if the mushrooms are poisonous or not, which
wasn't killing the caribou.
They kind of are. It's a specific type of poison.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're cracking me up. But the bad thing is, I'm sure it's true. But
it is true. I'm not even shitting you.
What I want to know is who the hell thought to drink piss out of the deer to get high?
We're going to go there. Who the hell thought to go up to a cow and think, I wonder what happens if I squeeze this fucking pit thing?
How thirsty was that guy?
Exactly.
I'll put it this way. This is what it was. I double dog dare you. Yeah. I double dog dare you to do it. And he's like, oh, really? And then the other one goes like, I triple dog dare you. He's like, all right,
Oh my god, I'm almost in tears.
A double,
so hard right now.
A double dare is actually, I'll do it if you do it as well.
Yeah.
Come
on,
exactly.
Come on. Have you ever?
Yeah, there are those coffee beans.
Have you ever watched A Christmas Story?
Yeah.
No, I'm asking Amon if he's ever seen it.
No.
Go watch that, and then you'll see the reference to the double dog and the triple dog dare you.
Oh yeah, the original Christmas Story.
Yes.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to watch that, Amon. You need to watch it. It's funny as hell.
Yes.
Give me 1 second.
And then you understand our references.
Yeah, but I had to mention that because you're like, well, how does someone do this? And like, all it takes is a few bored men, and they go, I dare you. Well, I double dog dare you.
now that you say that, that's how most of the shit that went wrong in my life did. I dare you. I ain't gonna do it. I double dog dare you. Do a couple shots. Guess what happened? Something went wrong.
That and you can't, and it has to be also followed by, are you chicken?
Yeah. Yep.
I'm just going to post something in the chat. 1 second.
Okay.
The bad thing is, most of this shit happened after I was 30 years old.
Oh.
I was like 45, 50, doing all this shit. Yeah. Okay, we got off topic. I'm sorry.
Oh no, we're at the point. We're in the last 7 minutes of the stream.
yeah,
So
no,
yeah,
The stupid shit you do when you get old. Just because you think you can, and then you do it, and then you're like, oh, I shouldn't have.
maggots are always good. Yes, Mr. Bishop.
Maggots
yes.
are, yep.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Oh, Iman's back. I'll paste it into the main chat. There we go. Let's copy this and put it into the comments.
Awesome thing is, I had physical therapy today for my hand from like 4 or 5 months ago. Every woman in that office is smoking hot. So I do not mind going to physical therapy at 7 in the morning. I'm more than happy to have a woman stroke my hand for an hour.
All right, thanks, John.
So no problem. Right, okay. So Nikki.
So if anyone's curious, the story's there in the comments.
Oh, which story?
About the reindeer urine.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It is real, I promise.
No. Well, that's how I found. I didn't mention that, except I had already heard about that. That was the whole point. But that was my point. Is all of a sudden you with these mushroom people, and that's what I said is, oh, why do I have a fondness of reindeer urine?
Yeah, that's where it came from. And I was like, not those kind of mushrooms.
All right, now this is actually a serious question. My thing is, because I was big into science, and I used to be able to draw a periodic chart and everything. If they eat enough of them, because we know as humans, our bodies concentrate our whatever we eat, yada, 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 into our waste, and it gets concentrated.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, when they eat these mushrooms, do they get concentrated and then more powerful?
Sure, why not? Right after you've drunk the reindeer, just go eat Bob's poop while you're at it. I mean,
honestly, it's an honest question.
I think some of it obviously affects the reindeer. I don't know if it affects them like it affects us.
Yeah,
but some of it will obviously then go and waste.
But I do know when I've had a really hot curry, it certainly feels a lot more concentrated when it comes out the other end.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I
think your body breaks it down also. I think your body does metabolize it and breaks it down unlike the reindeer, which I think the reindeer.
Yeah,
like
so it would. Yeah, it would probably be like a more easily absorbable form, if that makes sense.
Well, I think the reindeer don't break it
because their stomachs would have done all the breakdown and shit. So then our stomachs don't have to.
Are they feeding them the mushrooms and then?
No. The reindeer seek them out.
Yeah. They actually go and look for them themselves.
Okay.
Yeah. But see, with mushrooms, there's a lot of animals that can eat them that are toxic to us or not toxic to like deer and stuff. So for them, they eat it, but I have a feeling that they don't even digest it per se. They don't break down that chemical for the most part. That's why it just gets excreted out.
According to the thing that John kindly put in the comments for me, they do apparently feel something from it. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't keep doing it, right?
What does this have to do with horror? Other than it's gross.
I don't you think reindeer running around at a highest height quite horrific? Could use that as a horror monster.
Oh yeah, they could gore you with those antlers. Have you seen the size of those antlers?
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
What's the Periton or whatever that was called? The one that's like the carnivorous deer with like wings and stuff in the monster manual.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're good. I like that.
Periton.
Yeah.
Peritons. Yeah, they're good. Yeah.
But I mean those. I mean, if you can get that in there, especially, since we're talking about mushrooms and stuff, if all of a sudden you start getting infected with this and then the disease, we're talking about monsters. If you get that disease and it starts spreading around the other animals, and then you get the animals start attacking you and things, boy, that's also like, what the hell's going on here? And sometimes that's just when we talk about the horror, it's not just the monsters, it's the confusion of what is causing, what's the reason behind this.
Well, it's psychosis, isn't it?
That's why I like. That's why for horror games I like investigative scenarios. That's why for me Call of Cthulhu works very well.
Indeed. So now we have to go investigate the reindeer piss.
Yes, yes.
I bet you do.
Actually, do any of you remember Blackadder and they, when they went out to on the ship and they ran out of water and they had to drink their own urine?
Oh yeah. We don't have sugar. We don't have milk. We don't have water.
No, that was Blackadder the fourth. This one was Blackadder 2.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, it was the with Blackadder. Like, I think he was drinking his urine before we ran out of water. Was what they were saying about the captain.
Yes. It's a classic episode.
Dark place we've gone to.
We go down a freaking twisted drain every night.
Well, that's good because it has.
It's funny. I love it.
It has dragged us towards Pumpkin Hour. And you know what that means?
Pumpkin spice reindeer pee.
Have a good night, John. See you Saturday.
There we go. So there's only one person on the stream at the moment who has a channel to shill. So Bear, go on, get shilling.
All right, tonight we're doing the Four Color Cafe. In about an hour's time, we're discussing something that John won't show up for: sci-fi and sci-fi RPGs. So John,
I'll be asleep anyway.
Hey, which sci-fi RPGs are you bringing now, there, Bear?
We're just going to talk about sci-fi RPGs on now. So,
okay.
Bear, I'll be lurking. I probably won't talk, but I'll lurk.
Always happy to have you. Don't forget, guys, when I get to 2,000 subscribers, I'm giving away the Unnatural Selections backer kit for Shadow Dark that I backed at the high level. So that'll go to one of the members. You have to be a member of my channel, $1 a month. And come on over tonight and hang out and watch the show and have a good time.
I'll see you.
Oh, and next week, Tuesday, I'm going to be starting a bi-weekly Star Trek game. So John won't see that either.
Stop turning me off of your games there, Bear. You had me at, against the Dark Master. Now you have to do Star Trek, which makes me have to turn you off now. No.
Okay, well, that's fine.
I know. I just...
Take care. Be well.
Right, anyway.
Via con Diablos.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Right. Cheers all for being on the stream tonight. We've had Gingerbeard on. We've had Elfbait on. And Wayne popped on briefly very early on. Who else? I said Gingerbeard. Have I missed anybody? Gingerbeard, Elfbait, Saxius, of course. Saxius.
Yeah.
Wow.
The one who will probably be most likely to use the sort of players with the most glee, and he will. But he's good to hear. It's good to hear. Anyway, thanks for joining us tonight. I'm gonna head off to bed, and I'm gonna and if Lee, if you're still there, I'm gonna look at that for these sort of TP link boxes you mentioned earlier, and see if those sort of things can help my internet, because it's beginning to really annoy me, and believe me, it annoys me more than it annoys you lot. Cheers all. I'm gonna end the stream now, and I'll see you all probably Friday.
Thanks, everyone.